Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. After a week off, we are back. I'm your host Michael. Joining me this week, Gale from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
Hey, it's nice to be back. We've got plenty to talk about.
Hello.
indeed. After a week off, we're back. Like I said before, um, for those who are new, Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a live YouTube show slash podcast discussing all things boxing. For those who are new, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, um, live YouTube show slash podcast discussing all things boxing. As I just said, if you want to check out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, one main place you want to go to, that's the blog page, P4P Boxing Report, .wordpress.com. That's the link. Check the right of the blog page. You will find links to our pages and channels on Twitter, YouTube, G plus Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Player FM, as well as Mixcloud. Let's get things started this evening. Taking a look back at last week, kind of a junior middleweight showcase, if you will, that took place on Showtime in NYC. Three champions defended their titles. Erislandy Lara fighting on Terrell Gausha, Jermall Charlo fighting Erikson Lubin, and Jarrett Hurd fighting Austin Trout. Let's start with what many would say is the biggest surprise of those three cards. Um, Jermall Charlo, excuse me, his name. Um, Most anticipated fight of that card. Excuse me, Jermall Charlo. I keep getting the twins confused. Jermall Charlo fighting Erikson Lubin. Um, Arguably the most anticipated fight of that triple header, but the biggest surprise, as I said, is Jamel first round KO over the young upstart Erikson Lubin. Short little right hand on the inside. Erikson Lubin said he didn't see it, but the results was devastating as Lubin went down and he was out. It was a no hoper for him trying to get back into the fight. He went down. He stayed down. The ref stopped the fight then and there. Um, 2 minutes 41 seconds in the first round, I believe, surprising a whole lot of folks. I'll go to you, Gail. Um, were you as surprised as everyone else? Did your jaw drop? Not just when Lubin went down so early, but when he was just in a state of semi-conscious. Your thoughts?
Not only did my jaw drop, I think, oh, hell, he's done came out when my mouth did open. Yeah, that's one of those knockouts. You see it happen and you say, he's done. Referee doesn't bother to complete the count. One of those knockouts where he's on the ground, out, but his nervous system is still generating energy, so you see those limbs shaking. It's a little bit frightening to see it. He did pop right back up, which was a good thing to see. He's young, he's strong. He just got caught. And it exposed a few bad habits he's got that led to this thing happening. You know, he bent over at the waist. He wasn't looking where he should. He may have even had his eyes closed, and here this punch came, and he leaned right into it. It was sort of one of those 45 punches that's half a hook and half an uppercut. And I'm not even sure it was placed all that flush, but you know, when you lean into a punch like that and force meets force and you don't see it even a fraction of a second in time to brace yourself at all, that's the result. Pretty spectacular, and certainly was entertaining for everyone watching.
I see What You Need has joined us. Thanks for joining us on the show. I'll go to you right now. We're talking Jermall Charlo's explosive stoppage over the young Erikson Lubin in round one. We talked about this about a good bit last week. Well, no, we didn't. We were off. I'm sorry, but a lot of discussion. I was on other places talking about this fight. Were you surprised at the results how the result happened, what you need. Unmute your mic, please. Uh, Charlo said that he set that punch up. If you believe him, what do you think he saw that was able to set that punch up with devastating effect?
Well, good night, everybody. I just wanted to say that first and foremost. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. All right, well, I did a video talking about Derek James, how he talked about how the punch, they actually practiced for that setup punch. And I watched the fight. Actually, I have the fight here if you want to see it. But I watched the fight, and pretty much what Derek James said was that he threw a double jab. And Erikson Lubin, they knew that Erikson Lubin trained to break up that jab. When they say break it up, what it means is duck, duck, right? Or get under it, or slip it, or get by it, right? So they know that Jermall Charlo, he has the tendency to throw a double jab. They've seen it in a number of fights. They probably watched footage of him. And if you listen to Erikson Lubin before the fight, he's saying Jermall Charlo makes a number of mistakes. He's a southpaw, right? Now, if you were watching at the fight, you would notice that Jermall Charlo wasn't the one walking down Lubin. Lubin was the one walking down Charlo. They were in the center of the ring, going in a circle. But Charlo was the one boxing on the outside, right? Now, Lubin, he first of all went with a shot to the body, he feint to the head, went to the body with the right, okay? Charlo danced out of the way. And then Lubin tried to come in with his lead left. This is a little bit later. And Charlo countered that with a right cross. I don't know if you remember that. Lubin tried to get his guard back in the way, and he moved back. And then Lubin decided to try and go again. Charlo tried to go at the body. And then Lubin came back with, I believe it was, he tried to set up his jab, right? And then Charlo came to him with a jab. And then they went into a clinch. And what did Lubin do when Charlo threw that jab? He dipped, right? He dipped under the jab. So Charlo got Lubin to do the desired thing he wanted him to do, which is dip under the jab. So that's how he started to set up the movement. And so when he threw the double jab at Lubin, Lubin again dipped under the jab, okay? But as Gale was saying so correctly, he took his eyes off of Charlo. Even when Lubin was throwing his lead left, you would see Charlo keep his eye. Even if he slipped under the punch, he keeps his eye on Lubin. They practice, as Derek James was saying, they practiced that punch that Charlo did, which was a right uppercut. And basically, when Lubin tries to break up the double jab, that's when Charlo comes with the uppercut, and he will catch him as he's dipping under the punches. And that's exactly what happened. And Charlo was waiting for that opportunity. He threw the double jab, which is the bait. That's called a bait. And then you counter. So once he dips under the jab, now he thinks he slipped the jab. He's coming back up. You notice him drop the guard partially as Charlo comes with the uppercut, because he's not expecting an uppercut. What he's expecting is, what Charlo generally does is he throws the double jab and it's followed by a right, a lead right. Not a lead right uppercut, but a lead right. So I slip the jab, I slip the right that's coming over the top, right? And then I come back up. In this case, he threw the double jab, got him to dip, which is what he did with the jab. The first time he threw the jab, he dipped under the jab. He dips, and then he catches him. Of course, he got lead foot position as well, all of these things, and he was on the weak side. And then he throws the right uppercut, catches him flush with the right uppercut. Flush. You couldn't get it more flush than that. And so his equilibrium was off. Even after he got up, he was still kind of staggering across the ring to get to the chair corner because his equilibrium was thrown off. He was still spinning from that shot. So that's what really happened. He's young. He could rebound from this. But the thing about it is, Erikson Lubin's been dropped now twice in his career. The other time he was dropped was by Gonzalez. You can go ahead and watch that fight, the 8-rounder. And Gonzalez also caught him with a right that put him down. So I don't know if they studied that as well to see that he dipped under the shot and he continues to get hit by the right uppercut. And so they looked at that and said, all right, once we get that opportunity, we're going to exploit it. But as I was saying the last time, I don't know if I'm talking about the prediction for these fights. Maybe I didn't say it here. But while everybody was thinking that Lubin somehow could be competitive against Charlo, I just didn't see it. And the reason was because I know the Charlos, especially this Charlo, Jermall Charlo, he's not a power puncher. He's a finesse puncher, and he's a very smart boxer. He's not a puncher, actually. He's a boxer. So they came up with the formula there, and it worked. You know.
I see Jacob is also joining. Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing. I'll go to him, and then finally you, Daniel. Your thoughts, your reaction to Charlo Jamel surprising first round stoppage over Erikson Lubin.
Yeah, I had picked Charlo to win, but I thought it was obviously going to be a kind of a longer, drawn out fight, a little bit more competitive. But to me, not to discredit Charlo, like I said, I thought he was going to win. But sometimes I think, people get caught cold. I mean, I don't think that we can really say that we saw enough of the fight to say, it was how do you say, like a definite, I mean, it was a definitive win. I mean, he got knocked out, but like to see more of like what each had to bring to the table. And it happens in boxing sometimes. Sometimes you just get caught, in the right place at the right time. But that doesn't mean that, that Lubin isn't, a good competitor or could be competitive in a fight. So, I mean, I was shocked on the way it happened, of course, and just how hurt he was when he got caught. Because he, when he tried to get up, he was just like, he was almost like his batteries had gone, dry, and he can almost like barely move, like almost couldn't even get up to like his side or to get to his feet. So, but Charlo, credit to him. I mean, he landed a good punch while Lubin was ducking, and so it is what it is. The thing that I didn't like though is that, and both Charlos do this, is that they keep on saying like, these guys don't deserve a shot, but I want to know who is it that they want to fight? Like I think Lubin had, done enough within that division to at least earn a shot. And I know that they have a lot of, pride, and they think they're the cream of the crop of the divisions, which may be true. But I mean, like, who is it that they, realistically do they want to fight? Because I mean, them being in the organization that they're in, like I know, like Big Charlo wants Canelo and Triple G and stuff like that. But are those fights even? Can they make those fights? And why was Lara, who's his last couple of fights, why is he fighting the opposition he's fighting, and he has one of the belts? So that part I didn't really like that much. I think there should be a little bit more respect there. And hey, you won. Take that for what it is, and keep on winning your fights. You don't really have to chop the other guy down.
I'll go to you, Daniel. You more than anyone was predicting that this was going to be essentially a come out party for Erikson Lubin. Didn't exactly go that way. But to Jacob's point, it could be a situation where he just a guy who got caught cold. In the aftermath of what you just saw and having a couple of days to digest, your reaction to the fight.
Visually, yeah, it looks pretty devastating because obviously after Lubin went down, you haven't seen those like hand motions about it reacted. At least I haven't seen it since Wilder knocked down. I forgot that one guy, and he was shaking in the ground, throwing his hands up. To me, probably was a perfect combination of Lubin trying to duck in and then landing right at Charlo was throwing that punch. But let's not discredit Charlo either. He's been showing actually that he has a bit of pop the last few fights, particularly now that he's with Derek James. Maybe it's like I said, the sparring sessions he's having with Errol Spence. Maybe it's just the way that he's fighting a little bit differently from when he was with Ronnie Shields. But it showed that he has a little bit of power, and you got to give full credit to that. Now, as far as the actual boxing, yeah, he was controlling where Lubin was going for a good amount of that round. So it was going to be a drawn-out process. Now, for Lubin, you're going to have to treat him right now the same way we treated J-Rock. Okay, you got knocked out. Let's show me that you can come back. Show me that you can improve. Because obviously, like I said, well, the J-Rock knockout was almost worse because it was from a jab. But now he has to show that he can climb back into the division.
The knockout was from an uppercut. The first knockdown.
No. Sorry, no. I'm thinking about the first knockdown. Yeah, I'm thinking about the first knockdown. Yeah, but Erikson Lubin has to show that he can bounce back from this mentally, which he's shown. I think he's shown that he can. It's just going to take a bit. As for the Charlos, like coming in and celebrating, that's what the Charlos do. They've kind of earned it at this point to be able to call out. Now, obviously, Jermall has a little bit more leeway where he's going to go since he's not the WBC mandatory. So he's going to get the winner of the rematch with Canelo and Triple G. Jamel's a different situation because if you notice, Jim Gray tried to force an answer out of him that sounded like Erislandy Lara. When he heard Hurd's name, like, no, I want Hurd. It's going to speak to a theme, but yeah, they need to step it up because there's no more excuses now when it comes to the Charlos and Lara as far as the situation why they're not facing each other.
Okay, I'm sorry I was muted. Well, in the case of Jermall, I can understand it a bit. Same camp, same trainer, and whatnot. They spar regularly. I don't know if Ronnie Shields specifically wants that fight, and if he does, whose side will he be on? Will he be on Lara or Jamal? Jamel, listen, Lubin was the young, up-and-coming fighter who had a lot of buzz, who was the talk of a lot of folks within boxing. Jamel, he didn't have to fight this guy. He could have petitioned for another step aside or whatever and fought someone. But he did. And to his credit, he got the job done. Now, to Jacob's point about, and Daniel's point a bit about the trash talk, I mean, listen, as I posted on Twitter, love it or hate them, love them or hate them, it is what it is with them. They may be lightning rods, but in this sport, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a good thing because for them, in my viewpoint, it's not the trash talk or whatever between these two. For me, it's not just about the fact that they're confident in themselves. It seems to me they're trying to build a brand, and I'm not going to be mad at that. If they keep stepping up and fighting fights like this with Lubin or with Jamal did against J-Rock, if they keep being impressive and they get eventually get the big fights, I'm not mad at that. I'm not bothered by it. It may tick me off a little bit, whatever, but if you can back it up, you can back it up. And so far, or recently, I should say, they're backing it up.
It's not that I don't like the trash talk, and I agree with you. If they can back it up, they can do it. My issue is that when they say the guy doesn't even deserve to be challenging for the belt, my question back to them would be, who is it that you want to fight, and why aren't you getting those fights? But realistically, You know, like I know that they want the biggest fights and the biggest money, but if this guy has won and he's in your division and you have two other belt holders that are fighting different people on that card, like give me a list of names of the people that you want to fight. You know, like I just don't like that part where they say like, you know, he hasn't earned a shot or whatever. Like to me, again, the fight didn't develop enough for me to say that Lubin is, you know, used goods or whatever. I still think he has talent. And I think if, you know, he didn't get caught, maybe we would have saw a little bit of something like, you know, a little bit different. We would have saw a little bit more of the look. But to just blatantly say this guy doesn't deserve to even challenge, well, tell me who deserves a challenge, because they've been on consecutive cards where all three title holders are on the card, but they're not fighting each other. They're not unifying. So that part's the confusing part for me.
Well, to your question, Jamel was asked about who does he want next, and he said he wanted Jarrett Hurd, who also fought on this card, fought Austin Trout. Very, very good fight. Trout was winning the fight early, boxing, but to me, he was fighting at a faster pace than he needed to fight at. He was rushing himself, in my opinion, as much as anything. But to Hurd's credit, you know, he's a guy that slowly builds momentum, does little subtle things to break a fighter down. I think moving forward, he has to correct some things because, from a technical standpoint, he gets hit with too many punches for my liking, and he seems to bank too much on his physicality and his ability to take a punch. But you could see starting in round 5, 6, 7, the pace started to get to Austin Trout. The punches and the advantage in strength and power started to take a toll on him. You could see Hurd break him down, and eventually the fight was stopped, I believe, after the 10th round. Austin Trout, his eye was swelling up, his nearly swollen shut, and the corner basically just said enough is enough. He's taking too much punishment. I'll go to you. What you need? Your thoughts on the fight? Were you more impressed by Hurd? Were you a little bit disappointed in Trout's approach? Did you think he didn't have a choice? He only could fight that way just because of the size and physicality of Hurd. Your thoughts on the fight?
That was another fight that I actually did a video on, comparing Canelo versus Triple G to Austin Trout versus Jarrett Hurd. Jarrett Hurd has a little bit better defense than Triple G does, but all in all, it's ironic because Austin Trout critiqued Canelo versus Triple G. You know, he goes and uses the same method, but he doesn't have the same amount of skill set that Canelo has to be able to manage Jarrett Hurd. So let me break down what really happened. So in the beginning, Austin Trout, he was landing on Jarrett Hurd a lot, and Jarrett Hurd was even crossing his feet because Jarrett Hurd has a problem dealing with southpaws. Okay, the last southpaw he faced, again, he got hit quite a lot. But before those fights, he was handling orthodox fighters quite well. He looked promising, slick, skilled, etc. Right. So when it comes to southpaws, he tried to switch it up. He tried to switch up his stance. But one thing Jarrett Hurd did that was very good throughout this fight was he went to the body. That right uppercut to the body, he used it. He would also, they said he was, as they say, a little bit awkward, but that's another way of saying someone who their timing is a little bit different. You can't get their timing so correctly. So two very important things. Austin Trout, he's a very good technical boxer from a distance. He's not really a good inside fighter. All right. The other thing you will notice is that Austin Trout, unlike Canelo Alvarez, he can dip, slip, roll. You know, he could stay on the ropes. Canelo can stay on the ropes and just, he can handle you all day. He could just stay on the ropes and you ain't touching him, right? It's not the same with Austin Trout. So Austin Trout, what he does is he'd use that straight left. He'd use his jab and he'd spin you off the ropes. So you would see him, he'd spin off the ropes by, you know, sort of controlling the guy's body, and then he'd spin off of the ropes, and then he fights you in the center of the ring. So if you're backing up, the thing with Austin Trout, what kind of makes him somebody who, you know, he kind of limited in the sense that he needs a certain range to land his shots on you. And the other thing he got a little problem with is if you're coming at him, backing him up a lot, he has to throw shots at you to maintain range. So he actually ends up working harder than he should be working. And Jarrett Hurd, he keep his guard up, sometimes walk to him. He just keep on walking to him and bringing that pressure. And the other thing with Jarrett Hurd, which is cool, is he can switch stances sometimes. Now, he crossed over his feet because in the beginning, Austin Trout took off at a very fast pace. But he couldn't maintain that. And then Jarrett Hurd, after, you know, some of the punches that Austin Trout was landing on Hurd could take the punches. Kind of like with Canelo and Triple G. The difference is Austin Trout wasn't going to the body exclusively. He wasn't doing that body work on Hurd to wear him down later on. He was mostly doing headshots. He was doing that straight left to the pit area, and sometimes he would jab him, but he still wasn't going to the body religiously. See, with a bigger fighter, with any fighter actually, I don't care how tough they are, you start going to the body, you start investing to the body. That's where, I mean, it's a risky thing to invest in the body solely, but you know, you mix it up with headshots, but you're mostly going to the body. And you can't just go to the body, folks. You got to target certain areas on the body and work those areas. So the first thing you're doing is you start going to the body. Then you realize your opponent shows a weakness or vulnerability in a certain spot. You be paying attention. Oh, okay. Oh, you grunt on that shot. Okay, cool. You know you have to go back to that area and keep on working that area. So that's how you do it, because you have to look for area of weakness in your opponent. And Austin Trout, at a certain point, he started to fade. It's so funny because they talk about Canelo fading. When Canelo, he didn't have foot conditioning, I give you that. So his balance was a little bit off. But in terms of fading, I don't agree. But Austin Trout, we saw him fade. And when we see him fade, his punch output starts to go down, right? Before the 10th round, the 9th round, this guy, he was throwing 65, you know, 60 to 65, 75 punches, even 95 punches at a certain point in the fight. In the 9th round, he threw 32 punches, folks. You know, Jarrett Hurd got to him, slowed him down, broke him down. He's going to the body, always stealing a body shot, whether it's on the inside, whether it's from range. Once he could, because he couldn't get him to the head, so you start going to the body. And it's the body work that made Jarrett Hurd stop him. You know, that's what really caused him to crash him. You know, but a guy like Canelo, you can't hit him to the body easily because he moved that upper body. He have upper body movement. Canelo got so many different special effects going on when he's fighting. It's complicated, folks. But that's all I got to say. I just wanted to compare him to Canelo. And, you know, he's a good fighter. Don't get me wrong. Southpaw stance is his advantage. But he's still, you know, basic when it comes to fighting, you know. And that's why, you know, Hurd was able to take him out. He knew he was going to stop him, and they took it up. They took it up a notch in round, I believe it was round 8. Hurd started really taking it up, really taking the pressure too.
I see Adrian has joined us, aka AR the Bull. Thanks for joining us, Adrian. I'm going to you right now. I want to go back a bit, and then you can talk about this fight with Hurd and Trout. I want your assessment of Jamel and his surprising quick stoppage win over Lubin, and then you could proceed to talk about Hurd and his stoppage over Austin Trout.
Okay, well, as far as Lubin and Charlo goes, you know, Lubin has a tendency, just like Rigondeaux, to bend down in order to slip punches. And unfortunately for him, what he did was he bent down into the punch. And that's why he was knocked out, or I don't want to say knocked out. He was trying his best to get up, but I think where he got hit affected his equilibrium. And so he had a hard time. He really wanted to get up, but that body said, we're not doing it tonight. I was really shocked first round. I was really shocked, and I'm not ashamed to say I was going for Lubin. That was a rookie mistake he made, unfortunately. But again, I'm still going to stick with him. I think he's a good boxer, but they got to work on him with the defense. I think that's what he needs to work on. I knew that Lubin has a tendency not to get warmed up until the latter rounds, just like Hurd. Hurd usually, when I've watched Hurd for quite some time, and Hurd doesn't get warmed up until usually around the 5th or 6th round. And what I was surprised at is how many punches Trout got off on Hurd. I was really surprised at that. I mean, he was popping him left and right. It was around the 9th round because I kept score on it. My uncle and I were watching the fight, and I was keeping score. And Hurd picked it up around the 6th or 7th round. And I think that Austin Trout was banking on him becoming exhausted early. That's what I think Trout was thinking. And he should have got him out there. He had a couple of times, a couple of opportunities in that fight to actually get to Hurd. And what I've seen, and he should have done it earlier in the rounds, because Hurd is not a good fighter in the first 4 or 5 rounds or so. But when he comes on, he comes on. And I was surprised that he took the punches that Trout was throwing, because Trout was throwing some pretty good punches. I got to give it to him. But yeah, I was really surprised about, I was really surprised that Lubin was knocked out that fast. Again, it was a rookie move, and I'm sure he'll learn from that and get better.
I'll go to you, Jacob. Hurd, he got the win, and the way he's able to come on during the second half of the fight is impressive. To Adrian's point, he doesn't seem to finally get the juices. He doesn't seem to get the juices flowing and get fully warmed up in a good sweat until the middle of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But my issue is, Jacob, is again, as I was saying to what you need, as I was going to what you need with the question, his analysis. My concern about Jarrett Hurd is that, in my opinion, he banks too much on his physical toughness.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it in his face in the way he fights. He doesn't believe he can be hurt. He believes that he'll eventually be able to walk through any and everybody he faces, particularly at that 154-pound weight, Jacob, because he's a big dude for that division. Talk about the fight itself with Trout, but moving forward, do you see any concern with Jarrett Hurd as he moves up and fights not just better fighters in that division, but bigger, stronger fighters in that division, especially like the guy who we just talked about prior, Jermall Charlo?
Yeah, first of all, my hat's off to both guys. They put on a really good fight as the opening fight of the triple header, I believe. So it was a really entertaining fight. I personally thought, Trout could have won that fight.
Mm.
I think for some reason, when it got to the 6th round, because Trout was basically tagging him with all kinds of stuff. Hurd seemed to, like you said, he looked like the bigger guy in the ring for sure. But he seemed to just kind of walk down his opponent, and he was getting, uppercutted and pot shot. And I do think he got hurt in that fight. There was a couple times that Trout landed a nice uppercut on him and stung him a little bit. But he was just trying to walk his guy down. And I believe it was a 6th round. Hurd kind of changed his strategy. He started to, and so I'll give him some credit for doing the adjustment, but he started to kind of put his hands down and was kind of trying to bait Trout into being countered and kind of confuse him a little bit. And the one thing that I didn't like that Trout did is that he kind of fell into that trap. He started to try to go toe-to-toe instead of moving around like he was before and using angles. And then he also stopped throwing as much, it seemed like. he was landing so much early in the fight, but then for some reason, I don't know if it got into his head, this kind of like, hands down and kind of like sticking your head out there and psychologically, I don't know if that did something to him, but he seemed to change. So the fight totally shifted. And then from basically the 6th round on, I was giving all the rounds to Hurd because he was landing the more effective punches and, started making that swelling on Trout's face get really bad. I think when he went to the corner, they basically told him, I think the corner first said, hey, we're going to stop the fight. And then the doctor came in and, whatnot. But to me, if Hurd were to fight Lubin, I would have picked Lubin to beat Hurd. If Hurd fights Charlo, I think Charlo is going to fuck him up because Charlo isn't stupid and he's not going to give away those opportunities. And if Hurd just comes in straight thinking that he can't get hurt or that he's going to wear Charlo down, that's going to be a huge mistake because Trout landed some good punches on him and hurt him. And I definitely know that Charlo will hurt him. So I'm not surprised Charlo picking Hurd as his next fight because to me that's a
Easy.
That's a cakewalk fight. That's a cakewalk fight for him, and he can get a belt. And then I don't know, maybe Lubin could fight Hurd after that, or maybe he fights Trout. Trout is kind of, to me, is becoming kind of that stepping stone of the division. He's a good fighter, but
gatekeeper.
But he just doesn't. He's not. That time has passed. He had that win against Cotto, but and a competitive fight against Canelo. But I just don't. I think the time has passed. It's unfortunately, it's gone by.
I think that that fight with Cotto took something out of Trout. I don't know what it is, but I had Trout going really well up to the 5th round. In fact, the 5th round he did very good, but I had it even by the 6th, and from that on it was Trout. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was Hurd.
Body punching.
But you know what? That's what really surprised me, that Trout didn't go to his body. I kept saying, why isn't he going to the body? He was doing a great job on the head, but he wasn't doing anything to his body.
Because Hurd was going to the body. He was sacrificing getting hit to the head to go to the body.
I didn't see him. You know what? I have to watch it again because I didn't really see him go to the body that much. Not Hurd.
Right uppercut, left hook to the body.
I think
Straight
sometimes
what
happens too is that if a fighter is landing so much to the head,
they
forget about the body because they're like, shit, I'm landing every single punch I throw to his head,
body,
so I'm gonna knock him out.
Yeah, but that body shot breaks you down after a while.
Well, I know we all know that, but I'm just saying, like, when you're in the fight, when you're landing something, if something's working and you're landing it, you can sometimes kind of overemphasize on that and forget about, the fundamentals that you should be doing in order to break him down.
Yeah, a professional boxer should know that.
He also was noticing that Hurd was blocking a lot of those punches as well. He had the high guard up, so he was wasting some energy sometimes throwing punches at Hurd, and he was actually guilty of not being composed and pacing himself. He punched himself out.
Let me get Daniel and Gale's thoughts on this fight between Hurd and Trout. First you, Daniel, and then you, Gale.
It was an interesting fight just because of the way Trout started. You don't normally see Austin Trout try to fight at that pace. Not at all. He's more methodical. He's more picky when it comes to the punches he's throwing. I think he did assume that Hurd, just based on lack of experience, would probably either tire out or give him a mistake that he could land on. And he did pretty well in the first half of the fight. The problem is, though, and this is the unfortunate part when it comes to Austin Trout, as skilled as he is, he doesn't have much power for that division. So eventually, Hurd was able to weather it, was able to hurt him to the body. Like I said, right uppercut, left hooks, like what you need said, and eventually it just tired out. it was a good thing that the doctor stopped it, because I think if he left it up to Trout, he probably would have went for another round when he didn't need to. And it's a good win for Hurd in the sense that now you know that veterans are going to test you like the way Trout tested him. They're going to try to come at you early because the rap sheet's out on you that you don't start until the late rounds. So if we don't give you a chance, to get to the late rounds, all the better. But he weathered it. He used his advantages, height, reach, and ultimately wore the guy down. I do feel bad for Trout in a way, because I do agree with Jacob that at least his time as a perennial contender at junior middleweight is done. There's too many new lions in the division for him to overcome. At the same time, though, he is a serviceable gatekeeper. He is going to test you because he's a boxer, he's a southpaw, and like I said, unlike what we saw in the first round, he is methodical. He's going to make you wait for those punches. For Hurd, the better experience, the better. Now you know that you can wear a guy down if you wait long enough. You know that investing to the body works well even against top guys. And in the end, like I said, a good victory. And it does erase some doubts that people had about him. That he was a bit too young. He wasn't experienced enough. He's showing no, he's the goods. He's a champion for a reason. So it was a good fight overall, and unfortunately for TV viewers, it wasn't the fight that ended the night.
Yeah, and we will talk about that in a bit. Gale, finally, your thoughts on this fight between Hurd and Trout?
All good comments. I'm going to quickly close this out by saying it was a good fight for Hurd, and that lessons occurred when learning occurs with younger fighters. That is always a big plus when the win or loss comes along. Learning's the important thing. Guys like Austin Trout have a very important role in boxing. You know, he may be reconsidering the future of his career, but you absolutely need guys like Trout that are dependable, steady, and give you absolutely their best effort no matter who's standing across from them. Nobody ever says about Austin Trout, oh, he dogged it, oh, he took a round off, or, you know, you just know whatever he has, you know, whether it stands up to the opponent or not, you get it all. And, you know, as we'll talk about in the main event, I'm not sure that was happening. So I hope Trout sticks around a little while longer. There's still some good fights in him. Yeah, his days at the top of the division are over. It's really competitive right now. The next generation is here. But you need the older generation to be around just to keep the young ones humble. And, you know, once in a while they teach them a lesson. So, yeah, I hope that he doesn't go away quickly.
Indeed, and to the aforementioned main event, I'm not going to go into anyone specific here. I'm just going to say my piece about it, and then anybody who wants to jump in and have something to say, please do so.
Where's Bo, man? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. Maybe he's out. I saw a picture with him and his daughter. Maybe he got some family business to attend to. Also, he just came back from vacation, so he still may be in recovery from that. I get all the backlash at Erislandy Lara and Austin Trout shoot. I was among the folks who didn't like the fight when he was first mentioned. We first got the word this was going to happen against Terrell Gausha. But here's the thing for me, and I mentioned this on Daniel's show a couple nights ago. Be mad at Lara if you want to, and that's certainly understandable. However, if you're going to express outrage, my thing is, where is the outrage towards the handlers, towards the folks who decided to make this card? Because with Erislandy Lara, you know what you're going to get with him. He's a guy who's going to really, really box, going to outbox his opponent, outskill his opponent, not going to take any chances unless you force him to fight. And he does what he has to do to win, to be ahead at the end of the day on the scorecards. You knew Gaucher, um, and the way that he fights, he was not going. One, he's at least a couple levels below in terms of class of Lara. Two, he's not going to force anything to make Erislandy Lara fight. So you knew it was a bad style matchup from jump. Be mad at the fight you want, but the real question is, A, why did this fight happen? Why was this fight made? And B, why did the handlers of this event decide to make this the main event? That's my issue more than the fight itself, because you knew what you're going to get as soon as this bout was going to be made. You knew that Lara was going to win and win comfortably, probably go to a decision, because Boucher was not going to make him fight, and Lara wasn't going to do more than he had to do, because he knew that Lara was only going to do so much. So this was easy work. So again, that was my say on it. I'll just open up for everybody here. Your thoughts on Lara's win, and the fact that not just the negativity on social media and whatever, but for me, some questions here and some side eye towards the powers that be that made this card, and one, made this fight happen, and two, put this as the main event to begin with.
I think because Erislandy Lara was a veteran, he's the veteran champion. The other guys are new champions, you know. I think that's one of the reasons why they wanted to feature him and amongst the three champions that they had. And the other thing I think is Terrell Gausha, okay, he wasn't, it's kind of like a Jeff Horn versus Manny Pacquiao. The difference being Terrell Gausha, what can I say about him? He well,
See,
actually,
the fact that you're struggling right there.
No.
That's a bit.
Two things. This ain't in Australia. And I think this was a Showtime event, so no, they paid for that. But it wasn't a pay-per-view event anyway. That was the most important thing. I think Gausha, though, from Ohio, the guy got good all-around skills. He could fight on the inside, on the outside, use the high guard stuff. And Lara did drop him, even though he'd been dropped before. And I think even his most recent fight, he got dropped by a Mexican dude. So, but nonetheless, I would say that he had all around skill and everything. We knew it was going to be more of a skill fight in which Lara was going to dominate. But I think it was to make Lara look, look dominating, get somebody occupied, feature Erislandy Lara, keep him in the mix. He's like the main guy then. So I think that's why, because there's no other reason I could think of. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. There's no other reason this should have been the main event. If anything, I thought Erikson Lubin versus Jermall Charlo should have been the main event, you know. And then the second event should have been Trout versus
Hurd,
because Trout was a former world champion. You know what I mean? In fact, Lubin should not have been the main event with Charlo. It should have been Trout versus, in my opinion, Trout versus Hurd. And the reason being because one was a champion, one was a former world champion, and the former world champion trying to get back the title. So I thought if you're looking at it in terms of that should have been the main event. But if you're looking at it in terms of experience and who is the proven champion out there, and he's doing his next defense, and here are the hungry lions, you know, kind of lining up, and we want to feature them as in the undercard, I can understand that as well. You know, I think that's where they were going. They were trying to show how good Lara is, and they were trying to get him. Because if he wasn't the main event, you know, that nobody wasn't going to watch that fight to start with. You know what I mean? And he'd be like a forgotten name. So they try to feature him so that people would remember Erislandy Lara and have the other two events. But I know the ratings were very low for that fight, but still, you know, people need to know that, hey, this guy's really accomplished, man. You know, he's had fights, and people argue that he won those fights that they say he lost. So he's been around the longest. That's why I think they're trying to feature him. That's, I think, the main reason.
I understand why you're playing devil's advocate, and even the reasons behind that, the reason that you just given. The issue is, if you're going to showcase him, to show how good he is, put him in with an opponent that makes him look good. In short, put him in with an opponent more aggressive, that's willing to come and fight, instead of someone so passive like Gousha, who seemed intimidated once he got in there and saw the array of skill of Lara.
He fought his ass off though in the later
Yeah,
rounds.
but still,
It's just that he never been on that kind of stage before.
It would have been better off if you would have had a guy who's less skilled than Gousha, but a guy who come forward to fight all the way, forcing Lara to
knock him
do
out
more. Yeah, forcing Lara to do more and eventually take him out, because the way that Gousha fought, you knew that Lara was only going to do so much. Put him in there with the guy who's going to force the action to bring out the best in Lara, or make him look good. In short, that's all I'm saying. I'll just go.
It was a young undefeated fighter. You know, we if you look at the event, it's young. Well, young fighters. We had 2 young undefeated fighters. We had Lubin. We had 3 young undefeated fighters. Sorry, we had Lubin, we had Charlo, and we had Gousha. So they trying to bring Gousha on the level of these other young undefeated fighters, and Gousha is a good fighter, no doubt about it. He's a good fighter. You're gonna see more of Gousha. You know, he tried to make a good account of himself. He don't take much risk either. He's a very good defensive fighter from Ohio. It's just that he got the experience. He got a lot of experience facing Erislandy Lara. So I'm not mad at Gousha getting the opportunity. You remember, it's opportunities people are getting. Why put in a less skilled fighter just to get a knockout when you can have a younger fighter get some experience and get his game up to par? You know, Lubin, unfortunately, he kind of paid in a very extreme way, but if he could somehow, well, he ain't gonna get nothing from that fight. Actually, he just gonna learn. I got to go back to the drawing board. But with respect to Hurd and it's 4 of them: Hurd, Gousha, Jamel. You know, those 3 are gonna, you know, at least get more confidence, and they're gonna learn some things. I know Hurd learned a lot. Gousha learned a lot, right? What's his name? Charlo. He got more confidence. You know.
The only problem is that number one, this was about Erislandy Lara. He was the main event. 2.
Yeah, but you remember, it's all about opportunities at the end of the day too.
But my point is, anybody who's a regular watcher of Showtime, since this is opportunity, this is featuring young guys. Anybody who watches Showtime boxing on a regular knows that Gousha is not on the level of Jermall. He's not on the level of Trout. He's not on the level of Hurd. So again,
no, of course, but check this out. He didn't get knocked out like Lubin. Now we know Lubin wasn't on the level of Charlo. He wasn't. Now, as much as people want to make excuses for him and hype him up and everything, he's not on that level. Okay, so he got stopped. Now, check it out. Gousha didn't get stopped. If he was on the level of a Lubin, remember, Lubin took a huge step up. Gousha took a huge step up. You see, people don't think about these things. They're getting an opportunity to face a world champion, an experienced world champion. You don't turn that down. That's a big opportunity. He, in my opinion, Gousha handled himself down the stretch. He did. That fight got competitive down the stretch, all right? Which happens in Lara fights, because Lara starts off really well, and then, you know, the other people start to get used to his style. All I'm saying is that Gousha's got a lot of confidence. He just faced probably the best right now super welterweight in the division. He went 12 rounds with that dude, all right? And he was competitive for maybe a third of the fight, all right? So he's got some confidence, right? He lost his oath, but he got confidence. And all I'm saying is, I can't say nothing for Lubin. I don't know what to say for Lubin. I mean, I don't know what to say for Lubin. But he can go back to the drawing board and try and reshape his career. I'm not saying that the knockout destroyed him. Absolutely not. He got up and he started walking around. So he's going to be okay physically. But mentally, that's going to play a game. Because once you get dropped once, you tend to get dropped again. All right? And you have to work on your boxing game for your vulnerabilities. But when it comes to everybody else who's undefeated or took a loss or took a L in or whatever, they learn a lot. And you have to think about both fighters. You can't just think about one fighter, you know? And I think that's what I like about the people who organize these events is they're thinking about everybody, you know? So that's all I'm saying. And now Lara's in the mix. People are talking about Charlo versus Lara, which makes sense. That's if it's supposed to be a showcasing event for the challengers and the champions, and whoever come out on top. Now we know those guys. That's why they on the same card. They'll face each other. They have to at some point.
They were on the same card two cards ago.
No, not all three of them. As champions,
Charlo,
not as champions.
Charlo was on the card. Charlo was on the card, and Lara was on the card.
Not Hurd.
Yep.
Not Hurd.
No, not Hurd, but
that's my point. We have all three champions in the super welterweight division, except for Cotto, on the same card. That means they can now pair them up and let them face each other. And that's what's going to happen because Charlo is talking about facing Hurd next. All right. Lara is the only one who's not facing nobody, but we're hoping that whoever wins that faces Lara. So we get 3 belts together.
Yeah,
the card 2 cards ago was a 3 title fight card. It was Jermall Charlo versus Trout for I think it was for the IBF. The Lara versus Vanes and Charlo versus for the vacant versus Jackson. So they were all on the same card, all for belts.
Yeah, but the other Jermall Charlo is not there anymore. He's up at 160.
I know, but this was 2 fights ago. My point is that they were all on the same card.
Yeah, but now
I think to Mike's point is that I do believe it's the handling of Lara, because why aren't they trying to get him a unification fight or other fights versus him fighting, you know, the fighters that he has been fighting? You know, you got Vanes, you got Yuri Foreman, which that's a completely mind-blowing one, and then Gousha.
And at the end of the day, for me,
he faced Vanes already, didn't he?
What you said, what you need is absolutely correct about Gousha. What you said about him is absolutely correct. But it still doesn't change the fact at the end of the day, the attention is on Lara. The focus is on Lara. This is a triple header featuring him as the guy. It's still going to all the attention is going to be on him, regardless of Gousha, quote unquote, getting experience and whatnot. They're not talking about him, and they're not talking about that in the aftermath. It's still about Lara,
which is good. At least they're talking about her.
Well, no, to Jacob's point, they were talking about that 2 cards ago. That like the Charlos versus Lara, like Jermall versus Lara, that's been talked about. That's the thing about it. It doesn't bring up. The only thing it brings up is the fact that Lara went on social media and challenged Hurd, and then we wound up getting this fight. Which it's a dead point.
The point is now Charlo will face Hurd, and y'all will still remember Lara.
No, well, what I will remember most likely is the fact that they probably won't face Lara. Because for some reason or another, whether it's Ronnie Shields.
But Lara will be in your mouth. He will not be not relevant. He will be relevant. That's the point. That's why he's featured.
Just because he's in our mouth doesn't make him relevant.
Yeah.
There's people that get knocked out.
That's what makes him
like,
relevant.
Oh, I remember that guy got the knocked the fucked out. But
no,
that's the only reason I remember.
If he's in your mouth, he's in your head. So he's relevant.
The
only time
I don't agree with that.
The only time he's not relevant is if you don't talk about him.
Wait a minute.
No. If we Mike, let me do this. If that's the case, then Lara was not on Jermell's mind. Remember, he had to be forced in that interview by Jim Gray to give an answer, and he gave Hurd. And Jim Gray had to do the same thing to Hurd when he was there in the ringside. Those two don't want Lara.
But the point is, the point is this. You're talking about it. They don't care. The fighters will fight whoever you want them to fight. It's up to you. So the relevance here is if Jermall Charlo faces Hurd and Lara's still in your mind, hey, why didn't he face Lara? That's what they want you to do, so you remember Lara.
They have accomplished that for 2 years now, and it hasn't changed anything. That's the bad part about it.
Fellas, we do have 2 ladies here on the show, and they're being left out here in this discussion. So I want them to bring. I want to bring them into this. Gale and Adrian, your thoughts on all of this?
Go ahead,
Here's the
Dale.
deal. Here's the deal with Lara. Nobody's going to remember that fight because it was so damned boring.
Yeah,
Lara is a fine tactician, and let's remember he knocked Gausha down. He didn't finish him off. He does that a lot. He knows he's in control. He works only as hard as he's got to, and that's it. Now, I admire efficiency in business. That's fine. But I want to see a little more effort from somebody who's gotten himself up into the main event. People in the Barclays Center before the Lara fight were leaving in droves.
Yeah.
People were booing the lack of action. The problem with Lara is that nobody wants to buy a ticket to see him. Do you think that center would have been filled without the two co-main events? Hell no. No. Boxing is a business. Lara doesn't draw anybody in. And as for young guys taking on established champions to test themselves, there's nothing wrong with that. So they get a loss. It does not need to be the end of their career. Let's all remember how much good it did a young Canelo Alvarez to face and lose to Floyd Mayweather. He's done just fine.
Adrian, your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts on Lara was I was surprised at the way he fought Saturday. I've actually never seen him fight like that. He usually moves a lot more. He throws a lot more punches. And I didn't see the Lara that I expected to see. And it was, to me, I hate to say this, I've never said this in my entire life, that fight was boring. And it was so boring. I never heard people yelling, "This is boring." You know, I'm wondering, I don't know if age is catching up with him or what, but you guys, I hear you talking about Lara, but I don't give him as much credit and respect because I think that he could have done a whole lot better in that fight. I was very disappointed.
do you think the comparisons between Lara and Rigo are accurate, are
No.
valid, are justifiable?
No.
Anybody?
No, I don't. I think Rigo fights completely different. He fights completely different than Lara does.
It's the same. It's not the same fighting styles. They do fight differently, but it winds up being aesthetically almost the same result.
Well, they're technicians. You got to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
they're technicians.
Yeah, they're technicians.
And unfortunately, people who are not really into boxing like we are, if you're not knocking someone out in the first, second, third round, they think it's boring. If you're bobbing and weaving and punching and everything else at the same time, I know I used to read a lot about people saying, "Oh, so-and-so's running, they're running." And my response is, did Muhammad Ali run? He never ran. It's called stick and move. It is not called running.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah.
And also, I just want to say one more thing to add to the point that she's making. Rigo is beautiful to watch, in my opinion.
Rigo is boxing genius. Rigo is boxing genius.
I love to watch Rigo. Right? Erislandy Lara moves away too much sometimes. And then he doesn't do certain things that really make me appreciate boxing like that. But I understand where he fights from a distance. He can fight in close too. But I just want to say one more thing though. Against Terrell, I gotta say though, to me, that was a competitive fight at least for 4 or 5 rounds.
Right.
That Ohio dude, man, he got knocked down, but he didn't really get I wouldn't say he got hurt, and he gets knocked down quite often in fights. And that dude came, he did his thing. I mean, he was outclassed a bit, but he did his thing, I thought. And I thought it was, I mean, I'm not really a huge Erislandy Lara fan. I don't really I like the sweet science, but I'm not it's hard to watch him fight for me. nonetheless,
you know what surprised me is he didn't throw a lot of combinations.
no, he was sitting down on his punches. Lara was sitting down on his punches. He was hitting you some hard shots. He was trying to get him out of there, but I mean, the dude has a decent defense. Decent enough defense, you know. And it was a little to and fro for a while, man. I liked what was seen.
Yeah.
My problem with fighters like Lara and Rigo, they have the skill and they're obviously a class above their opponents a lot of the time. But my problem is that they don't translate that skill into getting their fighter out of there. They kind of carry their opponents further than they have to. And then I think that equates to people saying, oh, they're running or they're boring or whatever, because they see the level of disparity in the skill, but they're not using it to their advantage to finish the fight when we know that they could.
I would say this, though.
Yeah.
Gousha, you remember, okay, early in the fight, Lara was definitely in control. But as the fight progressed, Gousha started to get accustomed to the style that Lara had. And that's why he was able to use his defense now and start to really counter and start to really. Then what's happening? He let the guy off the hook? No, he didn't. It's the other guy now. He started to adjust and adapt to the style that's presented to him. And I think that's what people not realizing. With Guillermo Rigondeaux, he's an exceptional talent. But again, like most Cuban boxers, they usually fight from a distance. They fight from range. Really good at it. When you start to get within a certain range now, that's where you can get the fight to become competitive. And that's what you kind of saw with Boucher versus Lara.
And, you know, I guess it was Jacob who was talking, and who, I don't know if your conclusion was that Rigondeaux was boring. But if you just go back and watch a lot of his fights, he is not boring to me at all. He is, as I said before, a technician. And
Straight up video game. It's like a video game.
He can slip punches like,
oh my God,
no one I've seen, with the exception of Mayweather.
I don't know about that.
Whitaker too.
He's not boring. He's not boring. I don't think he's boring. I think he's frustrating.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that either. I don't understand.
I love him. I
don't understand what the criticism.
I'm talking about the
criticism of Rigondeaux, because just because he doesn't knock a person out within 5 rounds, you say he's boring. But I guarantee you, most of the boxers today do not have the skills that he has.
If we're going to talk about defensive wizardry, I'm just saying, don't just throw Mayweather in there. I better hear someone mention Prime Sweet Pea, 135.
Sweet Pea. No. I'm trying to get recent, but yeah, you're right. Sweet Pea was.
I'm not saying he's boring. Yeah. I'm saying he's frustrating because he has so much skill, and everybody says this and everybody knows this, but to me, he doesn't translate it into being more effective.
Broke a guy's jaw, man. He broke a guy's jaw.
Knockout?
You're making my point. Saying? He broke a guy's jaw.
He broke more than one guy's jaw.
Yeah,
exactly. You're making my point. He has the capacity to do that. When he doesn't do that, meaning he doesn't like engage or he's obviously levels above his opponent.
Really?
That's the frustrating thing. That's the.
Have you actually? When's the last time you actually watched him fight?
You know what really frustrating to me? Really frustrating to me is the fact that guys been ducking this dude.
Yeah,
they don't want to fight him.
Yes,
that's the thing that frustrates me. You know, so you can't showcase that high level skill.
I agree. He's been ducked his whole career. I agree.
I get frustrated with every fighter I watch. All fighters are not going to be the same in every fight. You can get frustrated with. I was frustrated with Lara not throwing more combinations, but that doesn't mean he can't box. As far as Rigondeaux goes,
and I'm not saying he can't box.
I know, but you're saying you got frustrated because of the way he boxes. He doesn't get the
I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that he doesn't. To me, on what I see is that he has so much skill that he's levels above this opponent, whatever the opponent is, okay? And he could, like you guys were saying, he's broken jaws, he's knocked people out. He's done these things before. He could do those things, but for some reason, he becomes a little bit more passive sometimes. Maybe it's the opponent. Maybe he fights at the opponent's level. So, like, I know that one, the Filipino guy that he fought on the Canelo Cotto undercard, he was like, very, how do you say, elusive or whatnot. The guy didn't really have much for him.
Yeah, I know.
But there was a lot of
him.
non-action in that fight where I thought there was opportunities that Rigondeaux could have exploited, but for some reason he didn't.
That he came off a long layoff. He came off a long layoff.
That's right. He did.
So that's why.
He did come off. And we also have to take into consideration the way HBO and Bob Arum did him. They blackballed that guy.
They do. Yeah,
period.
Yeah.
Oh no, they did. No, they did. I will always contest that he never forgave Rigondeaux for ruining Nonito Donaire.
That's it. That's it.
He ruined him.
That's it.
He ruined Nonito Donaire for him.
He made Donaire look stupid.
And they're the ones. They're the ones saying he's boring. They're the ones that started that rumor.
That's exactly what happened that night. They started that. And Bob Arum came out and talked about him so bad. And I'm saying, this is your promoter? Are you kidding me?
Right.
Oh, but no, I understood it at the time. Well, to jump into Jacob's point about frustration with guys like Lara and guys like Rigo, in my show, I called this fight actually just because of the way aesthetically it looked. It looked like Rigo at Becco 2. I named the Rigo Becco 2 because you had a good, decent fight on the undercard, and you just saw, just because people that are not us, people that don't see Rigondeaux style or Lara style, particularly Rigondeaux as pretty much Mozart for boxing in a way.
Yeah.
If you don't see it that way, they don't look at it, and then you see it leave in droves. It's very, very bad aesthetically to know that a guy is that good.
Yeah.
But he's not appreciated because, unfortunately, what has been sold to the casual fan? What has been sold to the casual fan?
Knockouts.
It's been tough man. Essentially, actually started man with the tough man competitions. It's been sold on. Okay, you better knock the guys out. And of course Tyson helped with that also. We have a generation that's been accustomed to say that exciting boxing is the equivalent of Mike Tyson knocking somebody out in the first round. Yeah. And that's the only thing that's exciting in boxing, because that's one of the reasons why Floyd, like I said, as great as he is as a human being, is not appreciated as much as he is as a fighter.
That's right. And I don't like him as a person, but I think he was a great boxer, period.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, we agree with that. Yeah, he's a despicable human being. As a human being, he's despicable. But as a fighter, I'm not going to deny the fact that he's the best fighter of his generation.
Yeah.
Before we move on to, let's go on to talk about the news. But before that, I want to know: did anybody here watch the kind of in-between fight interview that took place with Jim Gray and Deontay Wilder and Spence and one-time Thurman, specifically the back and forth, if you will, between Keith Thurman and Errol Spence?
Yeah.
I get it with Thurman. He is the unified champ. He has more than one belt in that division. And guys kind of have to go to him. He's kind of the money man now. With that being said, and I'll start this with you, Gale. Unmute your mic, please. Am I wrong to still get the feeling that even though Thurman kind of went in a long roundabout way of saying eventually, I would mind fighting Errol Spence, but am I wrong thinking that even though he said it in his heart of hearts, he really doesn't mean it?
I didn't hear much enthusiasm, so you and I are both like-minded. We heard words, but we got a different message. Now, I think Thurman has fully embraced the PBC, Al Heyman method of matchmaking, which is here to avoid these troublemakers, until and unless there's a big payday. And I don't think he wants any part of Spence until it becomes absolutely necessary. But let me tell you something. All of those guys at 147 better be looking over their shoulder, because there's a monster moving up from 140. So they better grab their glory while they can before Bud Crawford shows up.
Your thoughts quickly, Adrian. Unmute your mic, Adrian. Unmute your mic. You got your mic muted.
Okay, what was the question?
I was talking about the kind of the in between stuff with the interview between
Oh yeah, with
Gray and Wilder and Spence, but I want to
yeah.
focus more on the interaction between Thurman and Spence. Even though Thurman, he said that yeah, he would like to fight Spence.
I
He
don't
talked
think
about
so.
it being eventually down the road, and I understand that Thurman, he is the guy in that division. He has 2 belts. He is the money man, and if you're gonna get in the ring with him and take that kind of risk, you're gonna have to roll out the cash cap, roll out the bank vault, if you will. But
Well, he did
even though
mention
he said it,
he was going to take a tune-up fight.
but my question is, even though he said it, do you really? Even though he said he would like to fight Errol Spence, do you think he really means it? I still question that.
Nope, he doesn't want to fight Errol Spence. You have to keep in mind too that Errol Spence. Well, you don't have to keep it in mind. You already know he goes to the body. Keith Thurman can't take those body punches. I don't care what anyone says. If Spence can get him up against the ropes, get him in the corner, and he goes after that body, Keith is done. He's done because he cannot take body shots. So he is going to be moving. That's the only way that's going to keep him from getting hurt or knocked out, is that he's got to keep moving.
I'll go to the fellas here. Start with you. What you need quickly. Your reaction to that interaction between Keith Thurman and Errol Spence specifically.
Well, with Keith Thurman, I think he just wants a tune-up fight, and he'll get in there with Errol Spence, I believe. I'll say this. I don't think any fighter's afraid to face. Well, some fighters are, but I don't think any fighter is afraid to face any fighter. But I do think that Keith Thurman, he may be using his injury as an excuse to have a holiday from boxing and enjoy himself.
He got married.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much part of it. Even though I do think that he really was, his hand did get injured. I think he's going to need a tune-up fight, and he's saying he need a tune-up fight because he thinks of Errol Spence very highly. Errol Spence just beat Kell Brook. Okay, folks. Kell Brook was the #1 welterweight out there. Okay, he was. That's what it was. So Keith Thurman got that respect for Errol Spence. Keith Thurman's just saying that with my boy coming up, Terrence Crawford coming up into there, he hasn't fought a welterweight yet. So, earn your stripes before you face me. That's all he's saying. But if Terrence Crawford wants, he said, if Terrence Crawford wants to just jump in the fray and face me, fine. Let's do it. You ain't got a problem. But I'm just saying, might as well acclimatize first before you face me. That's all I'm saying. So Terrence Crawford, I'd love to see him face off with any one of those guys. I'd love to see Errol Spence face Keith Thurman next year. I don't want him to face in 2019. Try and make it in 2018. If they want to do it late 2018, fine. I don't care. But if Keith Thurman says he wants to be at his best, fine. I ain't got a problem with that either. But they should face each other in 2018 and get this party on the road, man. Let's get it unified. Errol Spence can go to the body very well, but we saw Kell Brook have success against Errol Spence in that fight. Let's not forget that. He a tough, he a strong, he a big, strong welterweight. But so is Keith Thurman. He's a big, strong welterweight. Kell Brook's a big, strong welterweight. We saw what happened in that fight. And Errol Spence goes to the body, no doubt about that, no diggity. Keith Thurman's kind of unpredictable in what he does, but he don't got the boxing skills like Errol Spence, but Errol Spence gets hit. So
he doesn't have the boxing skills of Kell Brook.
Kell Brook. Nah, he got better boxing skills than Kell Brook in terms of going to the body. Kell Brook seems to headhunt too much.
I mean, Keith
Thurman is
Keith Thurman.
I know. I'm just saying, Keith is more unorthodox. He's more like a Manny Pacquiao kind of guy, whereas Kell Brook is more classical, but he headhunt a little too much. He don't work the body. He don't break down a fighter. That's why against Errol Spence, he still lost and his jab kind of failed him because Errol Spence started countering that jab. So Errol Spence did his homework to the body and he got his dividends later on in the fight, man down. Errol Spence will try to do the same thing to Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman moves he moves weird. So like as my colleague here was saying, he will probably move a lot more against Errol Spence, and then he go in and out like Pacquiao. He will go in and out on Errol Spence. Errol Spence will have to cut down the ring and try to isolate him and then go to his body. Keith does protect his body pretty well as well. So it'd be interesting. That's all I'm saying. So I want to see that fight. I want to see Keith Thurman versus Errol Spence. I want to see who's the best.
Do you think
He better tighten up offensively and stop throwing those wild punches. He will pay against Spence.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to see Spence use more head movement. I know when you're doing offense, it's hard to move your head all of that much, but he still need to stay outside the true line. He get hit too much in the true line, man. Kell Brook be tagging that thing. He got to do something about that, because he big, he's strong, he can take it, and he don't take it regularly. But still, Kell Brook stunned him. You remember Kell Brook stunned him in that fight?
Yeah.
He had to back off. So you got to be careful, man. You got to be careful. So I'm just saying, Errol Spence versus Keith Thurman, I don't really know who I'll pick right now, but I would say this. I think that Errol Spence is the dude with a better skill in terms of proper training. Keith's kind of more like a Pacquiao. He kind of in and out, kind of unorthodox with them combinations and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see. It'd be about Spence cutting off the ring, getting to Keith Thurman against the ropes. Would Keith Thurman turn Spence a bit, turn him a bit, and pot shot him on the outside, land combinations on the outside? So I want to see how that would work, because Kell Brook was kind of slow, whereas Keith Thurman's much quicker than him, and the foot speed is different and all of that stuff. So it'd be interesting. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I know you have to dip out, but I wanted to give your thoughts on that exchange between the two before you had to leave.
Yep.
Daniel,
Thanks, man.
no problem. Thanks for joining us on the show, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Daniel, Jacob, quickly, your thoughts on that back and forth between Spence and Thurman.
Keith Thurman and his thesis. And it was a short answer. He could have just said, no, I don't want to fight Errol Spence, but it is a complete 180 for Keith Thurman from what he was doing when he was coming up, obviously. Remember when he kept telling Paulo Malignaggi, you better not duck me when it's my time. Or when he's on, I think it was 17th, 18th fight, he said, I could beat Floyd now. But it was funny how that word salad came out as Spence was staring him in the face with a little smile that pretty much said, you don't want to face me. Just say so. And then, of course, during the main event, they had him sitting next to Spence. And that was probably a very, very awkward seating assignment. But all intents and purposes, yeah, Keith Thurman is not going to face Errol Spence unless he absolutely has to. And Spence took away one of his options because he's facing Lamont Peterson next. So remember, he's got a tune-up, and he still technically has Sean Porter as the WBC mandatory he has to do. So I could see that and see him avoiding Errol Spence to probably 2019 or 2020.
Your thoughts, Jacob?
When Errol Spence says boo, Keith Thurman shits his pants. That's what happens. Because, you know what, Thurman, like Daniel was saying, when he wants to fight somebody, he can't be shut up about how, I want to fight you, blah, blah, blah. But when Spence's name gets brought up, he has all kinds of excuses of, not now, blah, blah, blah. So he knows that's a dangerous fight. The only way he's going to take that fight is if he's forced to, or he gets a shitload of money to take his ass whooping. To me, Brook was a top fighter in the division. Spence beat him. And Thurman, to me, even though he has the two belts, he's actually, to me, been on a downslide. He hasn't impressed me as much. His nickname or moniker of the one time, he's not doing the one time anymore. He hasn't been doing, knocking people out and whatnot. He basically gets out to an early lead, and then, his opponent will get back into the, fight or make it a little bit more competitive, and he starts to kind of wilt a little bit.
Yeah.
Against Spence is all. If Thurman doesn't get Spence out there early, it's game, set, match. It's over.
Let's move on to talk about some news here. Pull up something real quick. Okay, yeah. Focus on the heavyweights a bit. This week, we found that Kubrat Pulev pulled out of his upcoming challenge of Anthony Joshua for Joshua's WBA, IBF heavyweight belts. Carlos Takam is the replacement. And I'll just ask anybody here the question, and anybody can respond. I mean, does it really matter? Does it really matter here? I thought Joshua was going to make easy work of Pulev. Takam is a little bit bigger in terms of weight, but he's shorter, and I don't think he's going to present much of a challenge at all for Anthony Joshua. So again, the question is, yeah, there's a replacement opponent here, but does it really matter?
The only thing that matters is that there is a replacement. It would have been such a tragedy for Joshua to have that spectacular fight against Klitschko be his only fight of 2017. So it's important for Joshua to get back in the ring. But does it matter who's standing on the other side of the ring in the opposite corner? Unless it's Deontay Wilder? Nah, not really.
Any response to this news from anyone else?
Same sentiment as Gale. We just need him to win so that he can fight Wilder next year. That's we need Wilder to win, and we need Joshua to win so we can get that fight.
Yep. We'll put it to this way: like, the only people that are majorly mad are obviously British fans who still have to pay pay-per-view prices for this fight. Those are the only people that are semi-mad, but it didn't really matter. We know that Joshua was gonna wipe the floor with Pulev. Hell, Pulev, remember, even said, like, I need 3 or 4 months just to prepare for Joshua. And he didn't get that, so now he got injured. Now, Takam is a serviceable replacement. Like, he did pretty well against Joseph Parker when they had their title eliminator.
And
but yeah, we all know what's going to.
And he was Takam was third in line as the mandatory. So, it is a legitimate replacement. I mean, the only other option was Dillian White. And I'm glad they didn't go that direction. For entertainment value, there might have been something more there. But the right decision was made. And the right decision is to get Joshua back in front of audiences one more time this year, or his big show gets forgotten.
Quick word on this, Adrian. I think you're muted again, Adrian. Quick word on this replacement for Pulev.
I can't think of anyone as far as a replacement. I was actually looking forward to seeing Ortiz and Wilder. I kind of feel like, I'd hate to see Anthony Joshua fight once a year. I mean, that's really sad that there's really no competition out there for
him. You mentioned Wilder and Ortiz. Look, we haven't had time here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report to talk about that. We're going to focus on that now for a bit. Look, Deontay Wilder, after much back and forth about a possibility of fighting Ortiz, fight Bermane Stiverne.
Well, let me ask you something. What do you think about him fighting Stiverne again?
We're going to talk about that. We're going to focus on that now, but I want to give a backstory here because it's the first time we've talked about it on here.
Okay.
Initially, he was going to fight Stiverne, gave Stiverne a step-aside fee in order to fight Luis Ortiz. Ortiz failed a drug test. Now we see we're going to end up eventually going to fight Stiverne November 4th. But here's the kicker. Don King has not presented all the info in terms of contract negotiations to Stiverne. So even though it's been announced, even though there's been promotion, technically the fight from Stiverne's behalf, he hasn't signed anything as far as I know. So what will we get this fight?
You know what?
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't have to sign anything if he fights the way he fought last time.
Well, Mike, I'll say this. Yesterday, yes, Stiverne finally did sign the paperwork.
Okay. So yeah, reaction to all of this, all the drama that surrounds Deontay Wilder getting a fight, not getting a fight, fighters testing positive for PEDs, rumors of a big fight, they don't come down, and we finally get what we have here. A rematch that, while it has to happen, no one really wants.
Oh, come on now. You saw that first fight.
Like I said, no one really wants.
Not really. Not at all. I mean, I you know what? My frustration with Ortiz was that why didn't he or his camp just go ahead and put down he was taking high blood pressure pills? And
because he's a cheater.
Because he's a cheater? I thought
and right on time.
Uh-oh. Okay, come on, Bo, help me out here.
Wait. Hey, everybody attention. Stop talking, everybody. Stop talking, everybody. Bo from Truth and Facts, unmute your mic, brother. Explain, one, your Cuban comrade, Lara, why that fight was made, why that was put in the main event. Two, since you're here on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, we finally getting around to talk about this saga with Wilder and Ortiz and Stiverne. I want to hear your thoughts on all of this.
Michael, you know better than that.
He got his mic muted. Maybe he's not around. Unmute your mic, Bo, if you're around. Okay.
He may just wants to hear us dog Ortiz.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's keep the conversation going while Bo get his issues.
Okay.
On his
Again,
end.
all he had to do was tell him that he was taking high blood pressure, or his team should have. He said that his team is the one who's filled out the information. Well, I'm sure someone knew that he was, and even he knew he should have put it down there. If he had put it down there, he would be fighting Wilder. Unless, of course, like you said, it was something else. But all he had to do was just put it down there on the form.
That's my point, though, is that first of all, he's been popped before, and he's been suspended. He's been suspended before.
Yeah.
So how are you gonna tell me that your team, after all that you went through, and you finally get this fight, the biggest fight of your career, you're gonna miss that? To me, the only logical explanation for that is that because it was covering up something, and you guys were trying to get away with something, and you got caught. There's no.
So? You don't think it was the ingredients in the high blood pressure medication that he was taking?
Regardless, even if let's say he wasn't doing that, because you have gotten caught before, and how many fights have been stopped within the last 5 years because people get caught, or PEDs and all that stuff. The microscope is on you. You have your biggest fight. Why would you? It just makes no sense why you would neglect to do that.
We're talking about blood pressure medication. It has something in it that's banned. That's fine.
No. The blood pressure medication, though, is a device that's used by people that take PEDs to mask the appearance of PEDs.
Okay. Did they find something else?
No, but that's the whole thing. They were saying PEDs, but it was banned.
But they're saying that he used the high blood pressure to use that as an excuse to hide.
Wait a minute. I think Bo's mute.
Wait a minute.
There he is.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Clear the floor, everybody. Clear the floor.
Hold on. Stop. I'm at work. I'm listening to the show, and I heard Ortiz's name came up. I heard Jacob with his bullshit shit he was saying, and I had to jump in.
Tag, you're in.
Somebody got to get this shit.
Let's go.
Truth and facts, Bo. It's on you.
Okay. All right. He actually, now I will admit this.
he was wrong for not reporting that he took blood pressure medication. Even if you say a doctor prescribed it to him, and Jacob is right that there are a lot of people who do know that some people will take blood pressure pills as a masking agent. In this situation, they interviewed the doctor, they spoke to his doctor and everything of that nature. It's okay, fine. But he should have wrote it down regardless, because you are under a microscope. You have failed one before. People tend to say, well, Luis Ortiz don't speak English. I don't care. This is the biggest fight of your life. You got to cross your I's and dot your T's. You didn't have this problem. And my biggest issue with it is, if you're taking high blood pressure pills, let's just say, because this is something that I talked about with a particular person, I can't say their name, but I talked about with him and I said, man, do you think he didn't report it because he was afraid that if the New Jersey State Commission finds out that there's a health issue here, and they just got through paying a $22 million payout for the situation that took place with Mike Perez and they got a he fought. So they probably would even go more extensively, like, is this guy healthy enough to fight? And put him through all kind of tests. Right. And he probably wanted to avoid it for whatever nature is. But he should have reported he took those high blood pressure pills. Right. But if you're indicating that this dude was on steroids, let me correct you. It's a banned substance. There's a difference between a PED and a fucking banned substance, Jacobs. Get it right.
You got your high blood pressure pills, bro.
All I know is Stiverne is fighting and Ortiz isn't.
Well, and let's be clear about this. Ortiz is not fighting due to a medical decision. The commission didn't believe that he was healthy enough to fight, that if he needs high blood pressure medication, and if, as reported, his high blood pressure got to the point he required an emergency room visit, he should not be in the ring.
That's what I said too.
Pop drugs or not.
I said that. I said
it was a medical decision. The commission waived that. Whether he's dirty or not remains to be seen. But there are guys, you know what? These guys fill out these forms, and some of them are so paranoid about being popped. They list if they had a Mountain Dew, okay? They list anything that they think might be picked up. A little extra caffeine, a little bit of an energy drink, hell, for all I know, they
sesame seed bagel.
Yeah. Some of them overcompensate because they want to make sure every single possible thing is disclosed. So you're telling me a professional athlete who needs blood pressure medication, and I'll assume it's legitimate. And I won't go into the whole thing about the sketchy Cuban birth certificates here on the show. We've talked about that before.
No, you will not.
I'm just going to hold my thoughts.
You just did.
I am. I've told my thoughts. But, there's a legitimate medical concern here. There really is. And you don't want to put a guy in the ring who gets hit in the head and has a blood pressure issue affect the rest of his life. Who wants to be responsible for that? Not me. So the right decision was made. We're going to find out somewhere down the road whether there was some other reasoning behind it, whether there was some dirty business. Who knows? But his reputation does precede him, and that's a problem.
I see Scorsese.
Yeah, he took a big hit. Yeah, his reputation, Gale, took a very big hit because at the end of the day, now you have two situations where you had a VADA issue. So,
and it's such a shame, this issue aside, I've seen Ortiz fight. I saw him at Madison Square Garden on the Golovkin-Lemieux undercard, spectacular knockout. He and his team are some of the nicest people, some of the most decent people out of the ring you'll ever deal with. I thought he was a fresh talent. That's 2 long years ago now, and so far that's been his peak moment. It's really a shame.
I see Scorsese has joined us, and I'll get his discussion. I'll get his reaction to the issue with Wilder and Ortiz and Stiverne in a bit. But I want to go back to you, Truth and Facts. Earlier, we was talking about Erislandy Lara. My issue is I can understand.
I don't talk about Erislandy Lara. I don't talk about Erislandy Lara. Erislandy Lara put out a tweet, and I'm going to hold him to that just like I do everybody. You had Demetrius. First you said Swift Hurd. That happened. Then you had Demetrius Andrade name in your mouth. You should have been trying to fight him, and you didn't. So
Well, here's my
until
thing.
I see him either fight another champion or Boo Boo Andrade, I'm not talking about Lara.
Okay, here I'm gonna ask you anyway. My thing is this: people are mad at him and in the fight and why in his performance and how he looked. Okay, I get it. My issue is be mad at him, yes, but also be mad at the folks who made this event. Be mad at the fact that they made this fight with Gousha anyway. Why isn't there more outrage towards those folks, not only for making this fight, but putting it as a main event?
Well, all right. The reality is people are mad at him because the undercards were spectacular undercards.
Yes.
You had back-to-back knockouts.
Yes.
So you get back-to-back knockouts. Now you got the crowd screaming for blood. Then Lara comes in, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I didn't even watch the fight. I stopped my recorder after the Charlo knockout. I pushed the stop button. No, I'm serious. I can't. I didn't watch it, but I heard there were people booing. This is boring. And the reality is, it came behind those two knockouts. But Erislandy Lara, this may, unless he gets a championship fight, a unification fight, this may be his last time as a main eventer. It shouldn't have been a main eventer. I said from Jump Street, he shouldn't have been fighting Terrell Gausha, and he definitely shouldn't have been fighting Terrell Gausha. So, for the last 3 years, Lara really hasn't done anything, and he really hasn't.
Wow.
The last 3 years, he hasn't really done nothing impressive. So this is, he's another one that is pretty much kind of just, babysitting that belt, waiting to see what's going to happen.
Second question before we move back to the discussion about Wilder and Stiverne. A lot of people in the aftermath have made the comparison between Lara and Guillermo Rigondeaux. I think it's unwarranted and unjustified and unfair. Your thoughts on that quickly?
No, it's not unwarranted and it's not unjustified. The reality is the Cuban style of fighting, the more technical guys. If you look at Sullivan Barrera, you look at Luis Ortiz, they have a more pro style. That's henceforth the reason why they were never part of the national team. They was the Olympic team. They was more on the national team that traveled the circuit. They wasn't part of the Olympic team because they didn't have the technical aspect. So you get Lara, you get Rigo, and you get some of those other technical guys. The way they fight is, I'm going to keep doing what I do until you make me change it. If I can beat you with a jab, I'm going to jab you until you make me do something different. Watch the fight when Rigo fought that guy, Amagaja. Amagaja was coming at Rigo, forcing him to fight, knocked him down twice, so then Rigo, okay, I got to change up here. But if you don't make him change up, then he'll say, okay, you going to make me change up? I'll stay in first gear the whole fight. And that's just, the technical aspect of it. But when you look at Barrera and Luis Ortiz, they're not as technically sound. They have more of a pro style to them, which is an aggressive style to them, which is why they actually fare better than Lara and Rigo.
I'm gonna bring the conversation forward again, back to where we was at. Bring Scorsese into it. We're talking because we haven't had opportunity to talk about it here on Pound for Pound. We're going to talk about it now. The saga with the drama with Deontay Wilder. First, I was going to fight Stiverne. Then they gave him step aside money to fight Ortiz. Ortiz failed a drug test, and now we're back to fighting Stiverne. Your thoughts on all this, Scorsese?
When I see big dollar signs and Joshua Wilder, for what I don't think it should be a big money fight based on, it's not a good fight in my opinion. I think it's a blowout for Joshua. But when I see big money on the table, I don't trust shit no more. Nothing. So I look at the situation. I say, okay, did Povetkin cheat? I say, okay, Povetkin, he has an incentive in a fallback. If he cheats, he can still go fight in Russia and knock somebody out, and they cheer for him after he cheated, right? This big Cuban, who is the perfect person to pull this against and say, this is your second time, people are gonna believe this, whatever. Anyway, and I wouldn't be amazed if Ortiz took some money just to go along with this shit. I don't trust nothing.
I don't know about that now. You're getting too conspiratorial there.
Yeah, no, I'm beyond, but let me go. I just don't trust that either. I don't trust any of them. It's big money. And that's why it's going to a circus for me, and I'm kind of just tired of hearing about him. And I just wish Joshua and Wilder get it the hell over with, but whatever. Ortiz can't go back to Cuba and put on this big event and get cheered for being a cheater. He can't do that. So it's just like, you really going to blow your biggest payday and your possible next biggest payday with Joshua just for a legit? Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But if he did it, he did it. If he didn't, he is the perfect man to set up for it. I just don't have no way to feel about it because they headed towards a circus and not real boxing. Much more interested in what the 154-pounders did on the first two fights. They're going circus level with it. Just is what it
is. Let's move on to, like I said, I'm not believing. That's a theory to me. I'm not totally buying that. But you entitled to your opinion. If folks want to come, if folks want to challenge you, tell them come at you. Miguel Cotto, we now know who his last opponent is going to be, supposed last opponent, quote unquote. His farewell bout, fighting Sadam Ali. And again, I'm just going to open up for everyone here. Your thoughts on this? Are you satisfied with the Sadam Ali as his final opponent? It's whatever. After talking big about fighting whoever on HBO after his last fight, did you expect for him to go kind of this route?
It's Miguel Cotto. That's all that needs to be said. It's Miguel Cotto.
Anyone else? Any reaction from anyone else?
I rather Sadam Ali get a shot than David Lemieux. Sadam Ali, at least in his loss, went for it. You know what I'm saying? Him and Jesse Vargas put on a show with each other. David Lemieux just sit back there bobbing his head and didn't even try to fight. So Miguel Cotto's leaving. That's good for us because he's pussyfooting around, diving it up, circusing it up. And, Charlo's and them calling him out, they might as well just stop and cut it out. It ain't going to happen. So, I'm glad that Sadam Ali, if it's those two, he's more worthy. Of course, they tried to offer Spence and Mikey Garcia supposedly, but Oscar De La Hoya wanted options and promotion, and they just wasn't happening to feel that for whatever reason. So I mean, he's gone. It's a good career over with. No more pussyfooting in the division. I'm fine with it.
I agree.
It's at the right place. It's at the right time. It's a fine opponent. It's a shame. I'm hearing a lot about what went on behind the scenes between Cotto and Garcia and their various camps, and I am hearing that Mikey put the nix on it just as much as Cotto did, or maybe it was the conditions. That would have been a very interesting lineup because, Mikey wants Linares, so they're dangling Cotto, to get to Linares, or the other way around. And it would have been nice paydays for everybody, some fun fights, and it just didn't happen. And as good as Mikey is, God, he just has a way of doing this. So Cotto, Ali, I'm fine with it. It's in the theater. It's not in the big arena. It's in the theater. It'll be a nice small room. It'll be a very fun fight for his fans. Puerto Rico could use a lift right now. I'm fine with it.
Side note, Bo. Side note, Truth and Facts. Look, upon the word that Spence was offered an opportunity to fight Cotto, I can't remember which page we follow on Facebook, either The Movement or Ring IQ. There was a post about, in reaction to that, basically suggesting that Spence is running scared. And there was some folks who were in agreement with that. I didn't get it. It made no sense to me. I don't know if you saw it, but if you did, your reaction to that the supposed boogeyman in one of the big boogeymans in boxing turned down a fight with Cotto, thus proving there may be some fear in here. I'm not buying it for reasons, but I want your reaction to that specifically.
I think both dipped.
Oh man, he dipped out. Okay, let's move on then. Well, I'll just ask it here. To anyone else, to everyone else here, because I believe, Adrian, you in one of those chat pages as well on Facebook. Your reaction to that, for folks trying to suggest, Scorsese, you can comment as well, folks trying to suggest that because he's turned it down, that means that he's scared of an opponent, particularly in light of the discussion about how Thurman is scared of him and how Spence is the big boogeyman in his division. I'm not buying it, but I just wanted your reaction to that for anyone here.
No, I'm not buying it either. And you're talking about as far as who Cotto wants to fight, or
the reaction. Well, Spence admitted that Cotto offered him a fight for the final bout of his career, and he turned it down. And there was some folks, particularly on a couple of Facebook pages, specifically boxing pages, who tried to use that to suggest that Spence is running scared.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. You know,
No.
I thought. Okay. Well, I thought Spence was going to be fighting Lamont Peterson next, but those, you know, when people write stuff like that, I don't pay any attention to it because they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, really? Do you really think Spence is afraid of Cotto?
Ha 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 ha. Perfectly said. What the hell do all these fans know? They can,
I don't know.
They can yap about anything they want. They could speculate about anything they want. Hey, that's part of the fun of boxing. It doesn't make any of them an authority or in a position to know.
Your thoughts, Scorsese. It doesn't make sense to me because he's still a welterweight.
That's and even when we talk about Mikey Garcia, I don't want to see no I almost said it.
I know.
I don't want to see no 140-pound buck to 135-pound, former 126-pound going up to 154 fighting a Cotto circus. I'm good on that. I don't want to see Errol Spence grow. First of all, if you sign with Golden Boy, they have a tendency to tell you fly up to here. Fight Canelo. You're only going to be mentioned with Canelo. Hell, anybody on the Golden Boy staple, Lucas Matisse, mentioned with Canelo. Anybody, mention with him. I want to see Errol Spence fight in that damn welterweight division. I'm not worried about the sanctity of Canelo Alvarez. He has 160-pound fighters he can fight. They want that move, and they want that move alone. Oscar's trying to put on circuses as bad as Al Heyman has done some, and he's done some good as well. But I haven't seen Al Heyman putting on these up in weight 3-class circuses, and I'm happy Spence told Cotto it would have been a good fight. That's not a circus. Spence Cotto ain't a circus, but do it on a one-time thing and let the fight be done. If you want options on people, they don't want to be with you, hey, then obviously you're not good for the fan. You can't claim Oscar cannot claim he is good for the fans if he told us you can't have this fight based on Spence won't give me 2 years. If you good for the fans, you're gonna do it for that night and that night only. So whatever. It is what it is. Cotto got no room to say nobody's ducking him for all the fucking opponents he been fighting as of late. Did nobody want to see no Kama guy? You could have been out here threatening, making threats and beating people down. Then we might call somebody scared of you. Till then, I ain't hearing it, man.
Within the discussion about Cotto and his last opponent, I can't remember who it was mentioned. David Lemieux. Well, news broke this week that David Lemieux is going to be fighting Billy Joe Saunders. Interestingly enough, the fight is going to happen in December. I think the first Saturday in December. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the interesting thing is, it's not going to happen in the UK. The fight is going to happen in Canada. I'll go to you, Gale, and then Adrian. To me, what that says is, Billy Joe Saunders is getting a good bit of change. And it also says, B, that Billy Joe Saunders, he knows that his career kind of in a funky situation. He hasn't done much of anything since he beat Andy Lee for the title. Been out of the ring. More of an issue with him keeping his weight down and staying in shape than he is actually fighting. The Akoval fight, most folks thought he lost. And even his fight with Willie Monroe bore. I mean, hell. What got more attention in that fight was what his son did to Willie Monroe during the weigh-in than the actual fight. So yeah, your reaction to the news that not only is he fighting David Lemieux, but the fight is happening in Canada.
Well,
first you get Adrian, Gale.
No. Let Gale go ahead first.
I could not be more delighted to see this fight land in Montreal, where there are rabid fight fans north of the border in Canada. It's a great time of year to go visit if you're so inclined. You know, we've got to be not even 10 days before Christmas. It's a great little time for vacation. It's great to have it there. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. And these two have been engaging some exceptional quality hate with each other at the highest levels, and I expect that to continue for the next 2 months. It's going to be a good time, and it's a good matchup. It really is. It's going to be fun to see how it all plays out. And you know, the guy that wins walks away with a strap, and in that middleweight division, you know, makes him a very interesting player all of a sudden.
Adrian, followed by Scorsese and Jacob.
I think it's going to be an interesting fight too. And you know, it's kind of strange because I wasn't really interested in fights over in Canada or overseas some years back. But once I started watching those in particular, it was interesting to see how different boxers from different countries fight. And I'm really looking forward to this. I look forward to any fight, really, on the weekends. I look forward to any fight. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I really have to go back and study a couple of videos, which is what I do most of the time anyway. I go back and I study them, and then I figure out who I think is going to win.
Scorsese.
Yeah, David Lemieux can't win this fight. Billy Joe Saunders is too good for him. He's basically gonna be punching either too hard at a target that's too elusive, and that's gonna tire him out, or he's either going to drop his output looking for one big shot, and Billy Joe Saunders is gonna run all through the middle on him. Billy Joe Saunders knows too much for him. He's gonna be in some of the best shape of his life, as we see he's taking the fight. When he wasn't in shape, he wouldn't take fights. He's smart. He didn't go let somebody Walters him. You know what I mean? He do the Nicholas Walters to him, but now he's in shape. Yeah, I travel to fight that bum because honestly, David Lemieux is Adrian Bronner level, and people don't want to admit it. They keep on trying to give him a pass, but he misses weight just like Adrian Bronner, and he take a good ass whooping just like Adrian Bronner too. And Billy Joe Saunders basically gonna give him an ass whooping. And one thing I also want to say, I got to say this about this fight is December the 16th, and this fight, which I believe is actually not that good of one, because Billy is not. He could get robbed, by the way, because he's not a knockout puncher. He's going into another man's territory. He's gonna absolutely outbox him, and then they're gonna probably take his title.
Well, some people say it would be just given that Akavov fight.
Maybe that. I mean, well, I guess two wrongs don't make a right, but at the end of the day, if they did that, some may feel okay with that, but I ain't gonna go into my other point. It has to do with two other fighters and the trainer. I won't go there. But David Lemieux have no bit of respect for his fight, and he's a power puncher, blessed with power. He's never put anything else with it. I don't see how he's not in the Adrian Bronner category. Never defended a title successfully. Not going to be successful again tonight. His fourth loss is coming, and he ain't gonna be able to do nothing about it. He gonna get hurt more than people think he can hurt Billy Joe Saunders, because, like I said, man, he's not accurate. He don't have a jab. He don't have a plan. Nah, it's just going to be too easy. Smother him, make him reset. Smother him, make him reset. He only got power from the mid-range, not on the inside. Billy Joe Saunders all day.
Jacob, and finally, Daniel.
I mean, I agree with Scorsese in the sense that Lemieux is very one-dimensional. He relies just pretty much on his power. He's not what I would call like a marathon runner. If he doesn't get you out early, I think he has problems. But I also haven't been impressed with Billy Ho Saunders since his win against Lee, and Lee made a little bit of a comeback in that fight. So do I think Billy Ho is gonna show up and be in shape? I don't know. I mean, he hasn't really looked, again, all that impressive. So this could turn out to be one of those situations where it's a little bit more competitive than it should be, because both fighters have that kind of X factor in the sense that one has power and one has skills, but are they going to show up and use those to their advantage?
Daniel.
If on skills, yeah, I have to agree with Scorsese and Jacob. This should be an easy fight for Billy Ho. The problem is there's a reason I've come to call him Billy Ho. He does fuck shit, pretty much, ever since he won that title. And it wouldn't surprise me if Frank Warren took this fight because he knew that was the only way. He knew that Saunders wouldn't balloon to 230 pounds. In the meantime, now, what's also interesting is the setting. You as a champion, you're going to Canada to fight. That pretty much should tell you how much his reputation is hurt in the UK. With that disgraceful performance against Akabov and yeah, kind of boring performance against Willie Monroe, although Willie Monroe had his part in making that boring too. But on skills alone, it should be a cakewalk for Saunders. The problem, though, is I think Lemieux's probably the biggest puncher within the last 2 or 3 years that Saunders is facing, and it only takes one to land. Now he may be put into elusive, but he can also get a little bit cocky and try to stay and let Lemieux land one left hook, and it can go night-night. Or it can easily go into Saunders moving, holding, making sure that Lemieux doesn't get into any rhythm at all, and makes it a competitive fight. The main interest in this is the fact that Saunders is fighting that's outside of the UK, and there's a very, very good chance he might lose this belt because of that. Which, like I said, like you mentioned, the winner of this becomes a player because he's depending on who wins this Canelo Golovkin rematch. You have a very, very nice payday lined up ahead of you.
Let's move on to preview some bouts that's happening this weekend. Kind of a light weekend in boxing, but there's still some interesting bouts taking place.
Did you guys talk about the Cox Groves for the
I forgot
tournament?
About it. George Groves, Jamie Cox, part of the Super Middleweight tournament. Thanks for reminding me of that, Jacob. Took place Saturday. Quickly, Groves stopped Cox via 4th round stoppage due to a body shot. George Groves is going to fight Chris Eubank Jr. next. Big bout in the UK. It's going to be happening early 18. Quickly, anybody who wants to talk about that fight, your thoughts, your reaction.
I mean, good win for Groves, but I'm based on the Eubank's last performance. That's the fight I'm really excited for in this next round of the tournament.
I got Groves by KO. Body shot again. The man is on a mission. Dropping levels, you throw combinations at him, he just sits there in the pocket with you, catching him. He may take one. You throw 2 and 3 like Eubanks like to do, and he just drops those knees, hips, and bam, the man is on a mission. He's getting better with age for whatever reason.
I don't know about that. He may beat him, but he ain't going to stop him.
Who is that? Chris Eubanks?
He's saying Groves is going to stop Eubanks if they
you
win.
You could be right. You could be right.
I don't know.
You could be right about the non-stoppage, but
he may beat him, but he's not going to stop him.
Yeah, this is definitely the biggest body puncher he's ever fought, and the biggest puncher, period, that he's gonna fight. And it could be a stoppage, but Eubanks tough. You know, he may know how to survive as well. But I might be a little cocky with that. But I just think George Groves is turning it up too. I think Callum Smith gonna give him problems though. That's just my opinion. But
I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% convinced that Groves is gonna beat him.
Yeah, I got him.
The whole thing with Eubanks is even when he got that knockout, he still showed that he can throw those really, really wide punches that a better fighter can counter and close the gap on and hurt him. And maybe Groves is it. Somebody that's been in the division longer, who's fought better competition. Because remember, not only did he fight Carl Froch, he did fight, even though he didn't look that good against, but he did fight Badu Jack. So
Fought Froch twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there's that level, and Eubanks, to this day, his biggest fight was Saunders at middleweight. So there's that experience to go in. And like I said, unless Eubanks completely cuts that thing where he throws wide looping punches, I'm going to agree with the fact that I could think Groves probably wins this out.
Gale, Jacob, Adrian, your thoughts?
I don't know. I didn't see that fight. I didn't see it. So I know Eubanks knocked the guy out. At least that's what I heard.
Gale, Jacob, your thoughts on this? Gale, your thoughts on this? I should say.
Speaking of Groves in particular, that was an excellent performance. It's about as good as he's looked in a long time. So it gives him a nice momentum going into the next fight. Good win for him. Very solid.
Okay, let's move on to fights that's happening this weekend. Starting off with a doubleheader on HBO Saturday in Verona, New York. Jezreel Corrales fighting a guy by the name of Alberto Machado. I'm tempted to call upset here because, look, Corrales, he beat Uchiyama for the belt. Had some trouble with Castellanos. His last bout got knocked down twice. I think only the second knockdown was real legit, in my opinion. But I'm tempted to call upset because I just don't think many folks have seen Machado fight. Machado, a big guy for that division at Southpaw, not just tall but big. He has a frame. He looks like he could fight at 135, 140 pounds. Technically real sound. Throws for a guy who has long arms, short, sharp punches with some pop. He's a good boxer. He's a nicely skilled fighter. And Corrales, though he's very elusive, sometimes he's bad with his foot positioning. Whenever he throws the big left, he seems to cross his feet. And also he fades in bouts. So, I think Corrales is the favorite going in. But I wouldn't be one bit surprised here if Machado pulls off the upset. Your thoughts? Anyone who wants to comment?
I think you mentioned.
I don't think that.
Second?
Go ahead.
I was about to say, like, Mike made a point, I think, when we spoke on Monday, that a lot of times Corrales uses athleticism for the sake of athleticism. And considering the knockout ratio that Machado has, I would probably advise against it. But then again, I'm not going to take away from a guy that beat the man in a division twice in his home country. So it wouldn't surprise me if Corrales pulls this off. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by the upset either.
I'm just saying, Machado is a live dog. Anybody else who wants to talk about this fight specifically?
I'm going Corrales. Machado has a great knockout percentage, but you got to look at the competition. I think mostly fighting in is it Puerto Rico, and the competition as far as record wise and whatnot. Everybody has a puncher's chance, but I do think that Corrales is a very skilled fighter. I hope that he kind of learns his lessons from the last fight against Castellanos, who had been kind of like the, upset king in the sense that, he had been in a bunch of scraps in his career that he wasn't probably supposed to win, and he did. So we knew that was going to be a decent fight. But I believe he also got knocked down in that fight too. So maybe in the 7th or something like that. But I think Corrales is gonna potentially stop Machado. Yeah, maybe like mid to late rounds.
Gale, Scorsese, Adrian, if you've seen Machado fight, your thoughts on the bout with Corrales?
I think Machado will give Corrales a lot of trouble. I'm not sure he has enough to win. Although Corrales, to me, wasn't exactly that impressive against Castellano. And I think he barely pulled that out. Let's all remember that a lot of us thought Castellano won that fight. So he hasn't exactly had a dominating performance recently. Corrales needs a good performance to stay relevant. If he's really challenged, or God forbid he loses, he's in a world of hurt.
I'm just saying, Scorsese, Corrales made that fight against Castellanos harder than it needs to be. If he tries to do this here against a bigger punching guy, who knows?
Castellanos is a live guy though, man. He's not.
He absolutely is. And I will just tell you, stay tuned. Tomorrow you're going to see some news hit the wires, and you're going to remember that I told you this. Look for Castellanos' name tomorrow. But yeah, he gave Corrales plenty to keep him busy. And, we were ringside. Jacob, you were at that fight, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. Well, you know what the crowd reaction was.
Yeah.
A lot of people who thought Castellanos won that fight. And
he beat
sitting
Gamboa.
there in the forum. Yeah, he absolutely. Yeah.
He beat Rios,
it's a good thing Bowen's gone.
Rocky Juarez. He's had some big wins against guys that he probably was underdog against. So
absolutely.
He's not a pushover. So to say there wasn't a tough fight. We knew it was going to be a tough fight.
I think Michael's right on target. We really don't know what version of Corrales we're going to see. That's the question. Which version of him walks out on Saturday? That's going to make all the difference.
Your thoughts on this fight, Scorsese?
Kind of not sure. Yeah, I don't know the Machado. I can't remember if I've seen him or not. But
he has a handful of fights on YouTube.
Corrales needs to tighten it up either way. That you won't be a champion very long the way he was fighting versus Castellanos. It wasn't cutting it.
Have you seen Machado fight Adrian? If so, excuse me, your thoughts on his fight with Corrales coming up Saturday?
No, I haven't, but I wrote his name down because I'm going to do some research on it.
Okay. Let's move on to on the undercard of that, Demetrius Andrade. Look, I'm just happy that Andrade is finally getting back in the ring, fighting someone against a guy I don't know much about. This seems to be more of a showcase bout than the quote-unquote main event. Thoughts on Boo Boo?
I like Andrade. I like the way he moves in the ring. He's really good at slipping punches, which is something I love to see. That to me, a good boxer has to have that. But who is he fighting?
See, that's the point. I've never really heard of this guy. He's fighting
Alantez Fox.
Yeah, Alantez Fox. I don't know much. I don't know anything at all about him. I have to do a hard search.
Maryland fighter.
What's the first name?
Alantez.
Alantez Fox.
Got it. Okay. Yeah,
he's undefeated. He's 23-0-1, 11 knockouts. Looks like he's fought. This will be the third time he's fighting this year. He's from the Maryland area.
Oh.
Orthodox. But he's fought a lot in the States. One time in Santo Domingo.
Okay.
So yeah, this looks like I can't comment much because I don't know anything about his opponent.
I'll find out.
Yeah, I gotta see if there's anything on YouTube or anything. But again, the fact that he's back in the ring, that's a positive, I guess. Go overseas if anyone wants to talk about these bouts. Unification bout at 118 between Ryan Burnett and Zakayana, however you pronounce his name.
I can pronounce it. I bet I can pronounce it.
Yeah, pronounce ZZ's first and last name. Because from what I understand, this is going to be HBO same day.
That's a Japanese fighter.
No, the guy who beat Rashid Warren.
ZZ, that's his name. ZZ.
I just call him ZZ. Anyway,
Zakayanov.
Anyway,
that's more like Russian.
Yeah.
He's from Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Anyway, a little bit surprised, but because according to ESPN, their information, this is going to be on HBO same day, happening in Belfast, Northern Ireland, Burnett's home turf. Here's the thing for anybody who wants to talk about it or know anything about these fighters. I don't know how good either guy is. Burnett beat Lee Haskins, who was a horrible champion, and ZZ, he beat a guy in Rashid Warren, who, in my opinion, fights like a glorified amateur. So while it's a unification bout, it's a good thing. It'll draw a good crowd in Belfast. There's still a question mark about this because from what I understand, the winner is in line to fight Zolani Tete. Tete will body both of them. So his fight is happening, but I'm pretty meh on it.
I got ZZ, man. ZZ a workhorse, man. Burnett was, when I seen Burnett fighting Haskins, dropping his hands over and over again, trading, pulling out with his head up. I just feel like ZZ is gonna make him expend a lot of energy. I don't know much about both but what from I seen from the styles and just quick glances. That damn ZZ boy, we beat the hell out of Rashid Warren. He came over here and put an ass whooping on him, and I don't disrespect no man that come across a whole damn continent, come put some hands on somebody, and Ricky Hatton train them. And Ricky Hatton ain't training people to be no punks. They going, the guy at 140, what's his name? The fight Rances Bartholomew. They come with it. So I'm gonna go with him on that. But I know Burnett is like, they high on him from the amateurs and stuff over there. But I just think this guy ZZ gonna beat him down, man.
I refuse to give Burnett credit off of who he beat for the title. Nope.
Yeah. It looked like a tough fight for him too. It sort of was looking tough in there for him too, and he can punch. So I don't think ZZ gonna have much respect for him, man.
Last bout here on the docket, the cruiserweight tournament. Gausha is going to fight. Pronounce his name again, Gale.
Vladojek. I don't know how to say it.
I think Gale is on mute.
I call him one.
I think Gale's getting the program to say it.
Vladarchik.
There you go.
Vladarchik.
That was close.
Yeah.
They're going to fight in Newark. No televised bout. Maybe it's on the website, the World Boxing Series website. But anyway, Gausha is the youngest champion in this tournament. I think at only age 24 against Vladarchik, who I believe is 36, but he's a tough dude. He's physically strong. He can punch. My thing is, I just think that Gausha, I think he can take a punch. Especially based off the guy he beat for the title. His name escapes me right now. Lebedev? Yeah, Lebedev, who can crack himself. And I just think because he can take his punch, his youth, his energy, the fact that he throws more punches, that's going to be the difference at the end of the day. So anybody who has anything for this fight, please comment.
I'm going Gausha. I hope it's a good competitive fight, but I think for me, I know a little bit more about Gausha, and
I hope it's competitive because the rest of the card is trash.
Gausha is an interesting guy. He is a big, mean bastard. He loves to hurt people. In fact, Abel Sanchez, who trains him, he trains up at the summit. He's had to sort of calm him down. But he's learned a lot of lessons from his smaller stablemate Golovkin. He loves the body shot. If you watch him move around the ring, he moves very much in the same way. He has mimicked the footwork and the ring cutting. So the question will be, how much can his Polish opponent take? He's going to take a lot of shots. Now, sometimes you got to take one to deliver one. So that's going to be the big question. And if these two guys decide to pound each other, how long could that go? Not sure. The interesting thing about this series, they had just picked up a American TV partner, which is the Audience Network. Not very well known, the Audience Network. So you can find that on a lot of the satellite systems. I know Dish carries it, some of the others. So you can see it there. Otherwise, you've got to fish around for a stream. In the countries where there are TV partners, they don't stream it online on the site. So that kind of sets up a problem. But they've also been very, very good about posting the fights quickly. So if you miss it live, especially if it's a really short fight, you're going to be able to fish around and find it pretty quickly on Saturday.
Anyone with any further comments about this fight?
First of all, like I said before, like the venue is interesting because when this tournament was announced, they said they wanted to put this near the hometowns of these guys. And yeah, Newark, New Jersey is very, very far away from Russia and Poland. So it's an interesting venue. And I'm probably going to go for Gausha because he is, like I said, he is the champion. He is defending this title. And also, he almost killed the guy. So he does have that mean streak in him to really, really hurt somebody. And this tournament has provided decent action because he has to top what Ortiz did.
Yes, he does.
In a way, as far as excitement. And that's going to be a hard bargain to top what Ortiz did.
Nah, I don't think he's going to do that, but...
No, but I think it's going to be a good fight. And luckily enough, like I said, you're in New Jersey. You're by New York City, by Brooklyn. So you're going to have actually a lot of Ukrainian and a few Russians there in the crowd. So you're going to have at least a little bit home advantage for Mr. Gausha.
No, I think the Polish people are gonna come out like they did for Glowacki, because they come strong. They came strong for Glowacki. This guy's Polish. He's fighting. Wonderlic is basically Polish, right?
Yeah, he's Polish.
Yeah, you're right. All of them will be in there together more than likely. They actually got a good venue for it.
They support their Polish people. They got a good fan base.
Last little bit of news that's kind of connected to this tournament. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you do, what are your thoughts? What is your reaction to the fact that it has been announced that the finals of this cruiserweight tournament is going to be happening in Saudi Arabia?
Besides the song A-Rap Money coming through your head?
Money talks. As long as there's TV, I don't give a shit. That's fine.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I thought it was going to be London, but yeah, it's going to be happening in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, when the finals in May. So I thought that was like, okay, that's an interesting venue. Hadn't heard too many world title fights happening in that part of the world, but it is what it is.
I know a fighter in Dubai. Actually, he's from Africa. He's from a village in Africa, but he's been fighting for quite some time now, and he's fighting out of Dubai.
That's probably what I thought. If you were going to do the Middle East, I thought Dubai or Abu Dhabi was going to be it. Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia, yeah, that's a long shot. But then again, Qatar's hosting the World Cup in about 6 years, so.
I have a question. How serious? Wait a minute. Danny Garcia is fighting who next? Or has he decided?
His demons.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
He's
good.
fighting.
You're on fire tonight,
Yeah.
Jacob, man.
Yeah, he's fighting the ghost Pokemon known as his father.
Yeah, I wish
he
he would knock him out, that son of a bitch.
He has not decided. He has not availed himself of the options currently available to him.
Isn't he one of the people? Isn't he one of the fighters that Cotto was considering?
Yes. Well, there was not Danny, Mikey
Garcia.
Mikey Garcia. That's right. You're right. Absolutely. And he was talking about coming up in weight to fight him. I don't.
He'd have to come up quite a bit. I mean, it was just not right. It might have happened in the future, but the thing is, he'd need to stair step a few other opponents as he moved up. But that's dead in the water. Danny.
Yeah,
I think he's got his father tied down in a basement somewhere if he's smart.
Yeah, really. The only thing is, I'm trying to figure. Oh, Keith. I'm sorry. Porter was who I was thinking about him. I don't think he wants any part of Porter.
No, he doesn't. And luckily, Porter's going to be on the Wilder.
Yeah.
Yes, he's scheduled for the Wilder Stiverne undercard facing that AJ Granados.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. That's exactly who he's fighting.
Very big.
You're right.
Now Porter is very interested in Garcia. So assuming Porter wins, I think you'll hear a call out there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Danny had his one fight in March, and apparently he's called it a year.
Porter's going to call out Thurman, though, because he's the mandatory, isn't he?
Yeah. And Thurman did say he would fight in January of 2018.
Thurman?
Yeah.
Danny?
No. Thurman and Porter. Yeah.
Oh, Thurman and Porter. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, Wilder's already fought too. So
it was a close fight. It was a close fight.
It was a close fight.
Yeah. No, that's a rematch most people would like to see. I do want to make note here on behalf of the entire panel. We did not find it necessary to make one single comment about the Santa Cruz and Mara's card.
Wow.
I mean, there was that bad.
I thought Santa Cruz was brilliant, though. I give him that. I thought Santa Cruz was brilliant.
Look, man, I'm ticked off with Sergio Mora for his performance in that fight, hyping up
Avalos
with that lie that he has one of the toughest chins around. When he doesn't, if his chin was that tough, Carl Frampton wouldn't have hurt him and stopped him. If his chin was that tough, Oscar Valdez would have TK'd him. So I skipped that fight because, one, it was no need for that tune-up. It was no need for it to happen because, A, it was going up against what was the junior middleweight triple header, and B, you know they're going to eventually fight anyway. So what was the point? I mean, Sergio Mora, he disappointed me. Don't lie to the folks. Don't lie to the folks.
Well, here's what was such a lost opportunity. That card had a Major League Baseball playoff game as a lead-in. So you've got a ton of audience. You've got a lot of potential. Keep a few of them around. What happens? They dick around. It's 15 minutes, easily 20 minutes before they even get to the first televised undercard. It's a first-round stoppage and a really weird one. And then it's another half hour before we see Mars come out. Now I get it. He wasn't quite ready to come out that early, and he needed some time to warm up. They didn't have a swing fight in the bag. Hello. So for an hour, we saw 2 minutes and 40 seconds of action in an hour. How many baseball fans do you think were still watching when Abner Mars showed up?
None.
Well,
they moved on. They moved on to college football. There was a lot of other stuff going on. Fox just stepped on their you-know-what. It was ridiculous.
Well, they did say, the one thing is they did say, and they made it a point with the PBC people to say, they made it a point to say, this will not bleed into the Barclays card. We're going to do everything possible to make sure that this doesn't bleed into the Barclays card. So,
and they didn't.
And the way it worked out,
but they shouldn't have delayed that first hour of the card. Nothing happened.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree with that. But
Why couldn't they have hustled it up and showed on tape delay? Nobody's that much the wiser. Get that stuff down and run it a few minutes delayed or a half hour delayed if you need to. Accelerate the card and get it rolling. What was so telling, though, is, people in Southern California, when they know there's a fight at StubHub, they don't pass up the chance to go. Even mediocre fights are fun there. That place, I've never yet gotten an attendance figure. Jacob, you saw it, I'm sure. If it was 3,000 people, I'd be shocked if it was that.
No, I didn't go, but it was dead.
I didn't either.
You look around when they did the camera movements,
Well, they tried not to show much of the crowd for good reason. There's nobody there.
It was dead. It was dead. It was probably, I haven't seen it that bad since Robert Guerrero fought Aaron
Martinez. Oh no,
Martinez
I was
in the
there.
Afternoon.
There were way more people there for that one, and that was at noon. That was a straight up noon on an overcast day. Now that's the first StubHub card I've missed since Bradley Provodnikov. I mean, I had no interest, and that's saying a lot since I can drive straight there.
One more bout to talk about before we start to shut things down. Cecilia Braekhus, number one fighter in the world amongst the ladies, one of the most accomplished champions, men or women. She's fighting against Michaela Lauren, rematch in Norway. 10-round bout. The interesting thing is maybe not the fight itself, but the final press conference in which they went for the face-to-face stare down, and Lauren decided to give Braekhus a kiss right on the lips. Yeah, I've never seen that before. Reaction, folks?
I'm like you. What do you say? I guess she really likes her, huh?
I mean, I guess.
I think she was channeling a little Katy Perry. I kissed a girl and I liked her. That's a great way to get someone's goat if you think you can do it. This is going to be a fun fight. For people that know or don't know Cecilia's history, for many years of her career, she hasn't been able to fight in her home country because Norway has prohibited professional boxing from taking place, men or women for that matter. That has just been rescinded in the last year. So this rematch is going to be in front of Cecilia's hometown fans. She's only had, and I'm going to check her record to make sure I've got this right. She's had her last 4 bouts at home for the first time in her career prior to 2016. And she started fighting in 2007. So for 9 years, she was not able to have a fight in front of her hometown fans.
Wow.
So, she's the A side. So now that she can do this, she has. So bringing in Lauren for the fight, for the rematch at home is very interesting. Lauren was undefeated when they fought before, and that was 6 years ago, and it was in Germany. That's going to be a very interesting fight.
Yeah,
Lauren's from Sweden, so kind of an interesting rivalry there too.
But Braekhus stopped her in that first fight, and she's lost Lauren 3 times since.
Yeah, she has. But for one of the women's pros, she has a decent knockout record. It is really tough for the women to amass, a knockout record that's as impressive as the men because, they can't work up somebody in that 3rd minute. They don't get that 3rd minute a lot of the time, most of the time. Mm-hmm. So she's got a far higher knockout rate than Braekhus does. That's what makes the fight a little bit interesting. I think Braekhus will prevail. I mean, she is a prohibitive favorite. There's just enough there to make it interesting. To me, anyway.
Is that this weekend?
That is this weekend.
Okay.
And I think
the other fight that we haven't mentioned, we're thinking that it's not a very busy week. Did we mention the Endam?
Murata Endam?
No, because if there's any poetic justice, Endam will get knocked out this time.
That's another one of those unbelievable, it's on at 4 a.m. fights.
Yeah,
So
it happened Sunday. I think one of the ESPN networks is going to carry it.
yes, they are. They're going to carry it live with their contract with Top Rank. ESPN2 is carrying this fight at 4 a.m. live, which just forget the fight or the quality of the fight. Just the fact that that is happening, I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't think I'm getting up at 4 in the morning this time for that one.
No,
I got up for Neri and for
Yamanaka is not worthy of that.
not this one.
It's not worthy of that.
That's Sunday. Forget it.
Yeah, actually, now that you've mentioned it, I've seen this popped up. Neri actually is going to come back into the ring against some Filipino guy, and they're calling it a 10-round non-title bout. And apparently, there's people either didn't get the memo or we didn't get the memo. To them, the WBC hasn't decided yet the fate of that belt, according to Neri's people.
Well, looky here, and you are quite correct, Daniel. It's against Arthur Villanueva at the Gas Mart Stadium in lovely downtown Tijuana, Mexico. Subject to commission approval, however, it says on the schedule. Who's Villanueva? Yep, kid from the Philippines with a 31-2 record who fought Zolani Tete.
I was going to say, did he lose
earlier in the year?
Did he lose to Tete recently?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did in April. So but he took him to a decision. So
wait a minute. That was the fight in which Tete eventually was given the WBO champion because Tabalas, however you pronounce his name, failed to make weight. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. So
Yep.
So I don't know where the hell Gas Mart Stadium is, but that puts these guys about 40 miles south of me. So I'll have to ask some of my good friends south of the border what the hell is going on. It's scheduled. It's on the calendar for November 4th.
Okay. Yeah. No, the part of interesting is their people are saying like the WBC has not made any rulings on the belt, even though I think we all assumed that they gave it back to Yamanaka.
Well, they reinstated Yamanaka, but they didn't take it away from Neri. It's a very weird situation. It just seemed to be apparently sitting on it thinking we're all going to forget about it or something. Why in the world they're
Gale, I thought they gave him back the belt.
Well, they gave him back the title, but
okay, that's okay.
It's a technicality. It's a very strange situation. Why in the world is he fighting at this point? I'm not quite sure I get that. But November 4th is still a long way away. Who knows what could happen between then and now.
Indeed, I think we're going to start to shut down things. On that note, going to go around the panel here, starting with ladies first. Starting with Adrian, AR the Bull.
ADR the
Bull. ADR the Bull.
I'm a Taurus, so I just use the Bull. ADR the Bull.
For folks who want to talk the sweet science or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me on Facebook. It's Adrian Yoshino, and I would love to see some Japanese boxers over here. I would. I think I got great Japanese boxers.
Yeah, indeed. We saw Inoue.
And you're right.
Last week. Well, back in September.
Inoue.
Right.
Inoue.
No, it's pronounced. People are pronouncing it. They're not pronouncing it the correct way. I know. I just took the Japanese lesson.
It's actually Inoue. Yeah, it's Inoue.
But yeah, I would really like to see other boxers from other countries, not just Japan, but other countries. I think we need to mix it up a little bit because these guys, they've gotten so lazy. I don't want to fight that person, or I want to fight this person. I don't want to fight that person. Well, when are you going to fight? I mean, what is it? Once? Maybe you'll get a couple that'll fight twice a year, sometimes 3. Only person I can think of who's been fighting regularly for the past 2 years is Spence. I can't really think of anyone else who who wants to get up and fight.
I would say Bud, but
But I mean, honestly, guys, think about the box, especially when you're looking at, well, it's not a whole lot in 140. But when you're looking at 147 and 154, come on now. I don't know why these guys don't want to fight each other. I don't understand that.
Risk versus reward ratio.
Yeah, but you know what? There's been so many good boxers who've lost.
Absolutely. Well, that's a whole nother show we could talk
Yeah, it
about
is.
that.
Yeah,
You know,
it
is.
Right.
That's the ongoing discussion about, how much does that matter?
Yeah.
Well, I'll follow on. This is Gale Falkenthal, and I am at Communities Digital News, which is COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I News, comdiginews.com is where my regular column is. Of course, you hear me on the Pound for Pound Report, and on Twitter, I'm at PR Pro San Diego.
Going to you, Scorsese. You came on a little bit late, but I'm glad you came on anyway. For folks who want to talk the sweet science or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at my low place, all one word, talking a lot of boxing and giving my honest and brutal opinion, but nonetheless honest. And my YouTube channel, my YouTube channel is low place #MLPF, and you can definitely find me there. I'm just an honest boxing talker, no favorites here, just gonna tell it how I see it.
I want to give a couple of shouts outs. I know you got, I ain't gonna say beef with this dude, but he decided to give me a shout out anyway. So I have to respond in kind because he did give me a shout out on his channel. Got to give a shout out to Dan the Man. I know you had some heated debates back and forth between that brother, but it wouldn't be right if he goes out of his way to give me a shout out and I not respond in kind. So
I just got off the phone with him tonight.
I do want to give a shout out to Dan the Man Boxing, who gave me a shout out on his show, his channel, one of his shows a couple of weeks back, I believe it was. So I will give a shout out to him. So yeah, go to first of all, What You Need. I want to thank him for joining the show earlier. If you want to check him out on G Plus and YouTube, especially, he has his own boxing channel. Just go to What You Need. That is WATT, capital U, capital NEED. There you go. What? WATT, capital U, capital NEED. He has an excellent boxing channel where he does not just talk about current fighters. He also does an excellent job of talking about fighters from yesteryear and tries to make a comparison from fighters in the past to fighters of today. Going to you, Daniel, from the Inscriber, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat. And best wishes to Gordon Hayward. I have to say that. Horrific knee injury took place last night on the opening game of the NBA season. Out for the year with fracture to his tibia, dislocated ankle, just a nasty little injury. But anyway, for those who want to talk NBA, for those who want to talk the sweet science, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, folks, you can find me on Twitter at Rockets99. I write for the Inscriber magazine. I just did a small Heat preview yesterday, and definitely excited to have a show with the good folks for Boxing News, Joe and Francis. We put it up on their website also as well, and also on SoundCloud. And definitely catch us next week because we're going to have a couple of interesting fights coming up. And not to mention, it's going to start kicking off with Joshua and then Wilder coming up.
I also want to give out a shout out to Bo from Truth and Facts Boxing. He joined us briefly. You want to check him out on Twitter. You can follow him on Twitter at truth_facts. Factbox1. That's true, TRUTH_FACTBOX1. He's also under that same title. You can follow him on Twitter under the same place. So yeah, follow him if you want to talk boxing. If you want to follow the adventures of his daughter, who is hilarious. She is a comedian in waiting. The skits between those two will have you laughing in stitches. So there you go. Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing, for folks who want to talk the sweet science or talk movies with you. Let the people know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, you know what? First of all, I want to say I missed everybody on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. You know, I like being on the show. It's a pleasure being with this esteemed panel. Shout out to the regulars, Gus and Bo, and I know he got to jump on for a little bit, and everybody else that joins. But yeah, I could be found at JRATM23 on Twitter or Jabhook Boxing. And then I also did recently when I was in New York, I did a podcast for Wrong Reel. And we talked about the career of John McTiernan. And I have another one that should be releasing for Flixwise Canada on the 30th, talking about David Fincher early career. So if you want to talk about movies. And one more shout out, follow the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, give it a review, tell your friends. Best boxing show on the planet.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. If you follow me on Twitter, if you follow me on Instagram, if you follow me on Facebook, you should know a lot of you would know that I am in the fitness game, online Beachbody Coach. Well, the last post
Yeah, you are.
on blog page made an announcement. I'm finally getting things kicked off. Starting November, the plan is November 6th. I'm sending an invite to anyone interested. Having my own 30-day fitness accountability challenge. So if you want to check, if you want any more information on that, hit me up on Pound for Pound Twitter at P4P Boxing Report, or on my personal Twitter, Brother JR7 at Brother JR76, or hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, Brother JR SC. So yeah, I'm getting things kicked off. My first 30-day fitness challenge. So there you go. Hit me up on those three places. As I stated, if you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me personally, Brother JR at Brother JR76. You want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing, check out the blog page, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. That's the link. Check the right of the page. You'll find links to where to follow, where to check our pages and channels on Twitter, G+, YouTube, Tumblr, as well as where to listen to us, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, Player FM, as well as Mixcloud. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Corrales and Machado, Andrade, his bout, the unification bout between Burnett and ZZ, the cruiserweight bout, Gausha and Zwarsky. Damn, I can't get his name right.
The Polish dude.
Polish dude. We made
Wonderly.
Yeah, what you said. We may talk about Indomitable Lara. Very good and exciting flyweight on the come up. Is fighting on the undercard by the name of Higa. We may do a recap of those bouts as well. We will also do a preview of Anthony Joshua, Carlos Takam, Calio Fight is fighting on the undercard, as well as Dillian White. We would also do I'm trying to think. Katie Taylor's going to be fighting on that card as well. I believe she's getting her first title opportunity, first title shot. So we will talk about all those bouts. So yeah, Adrian ARD the Bull.
ADR
the Bull.
You know what? And also I'm on Truth and Facts About Boxing with Bo a lot of times too.
Yeah, indeed. So for ADR the Bull, for Gale from Community Digital News, for What You Need, from Bo from Truth and Facts, for Scorsese, for Daniel of The Inscriber, from Jacob of Jab Hook. I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 186 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Everybody have a good evening. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.